Chapter 1264. Is that true? Then what happened to him? As Xiao Chen asked, he was secretly shocked. Could it be that there were cultivators among those evil cultivators? If Gong Sun Yin wasn't lying, then there would be big trouble. It should be known that ordinary cultivators were no match for evil cultivators of the same level. After all, evil cultivators' cultivation methods were cruel and tyrannical. The evil techniques they used were also strange and unpredictable. Their explosive strength was much higher than that of ordinary cultivators. If there were cultivators among them, then it meant that there was basically no one who could resist them. If this continued, the consequences would be unimaginable. Later on, Situ Haoyin recovered from his injuries with great difficulty. He felt that this battle was an unforgettable shame, so he decided to take a risk and go to the world of cultivators. He wanted to see if he could obtain more strength. Gong Sun Yan's voice was somewhat low. It was obvious that he didn't want to recall this part of the past. Oh, I heard that he came back later, right? Then did he have another showdown with the ghost cultivation sect? Xiao Chen asked as he rubbed his chin. Gong Sun Yen curled his lips and answered reluctantly, about 20 years ago, Situ Haoyin came back once. He thought that he had obtained strength in the world of cultivators and could easily defeat Shishan Giant Ox. However, after he came to challenge them, apart from killing a few low-level evil cultivators, he could only fight to a draw with Shishan Giant Ox. He was helpless and could only return empty-handed. So he was ashamed and couldn't face the people of your sect, so he chose to leave? Xiao Chen asked with great interest. Who knows what he was thinking? Gong Sun Yen suddenly flew into a rage. He gritted his teeth and said, he didn't tell us the reason and just ran away. I don't know if he died of guilt or if he took his concubine to live in seclusion in the world of cultivators and live happily ever after. At the mention of Situ Haoyin's name, Gong Sun Yen had a belly full of anger. This guy had obtained strength, but he didn't allow others to enter the world of cultivators to advance. He even set those strange rules. Gong Sun Yen didn't know if he was crazy, but it made Gong Sun Yen very unhappy. Hearing Gong Sun Yan's words, Xiao Chen's face became a bit gloomy. He didn't care whether Situ Haoyin could defeat the giant ox or not, but Gong Sun Yen actually insulted his mother, saying that she was Situ Haoyin's concubine. Xiao Chen hated people who talked about his parents the most in his life. Fortunately, elder son, who was standing to the side, had sharp eyes. He noticed that Xiao Chen's expression had become very unsightly. After pondering for a moment, he understood the reason. He hurriedly whispered a few words into Gong Sun Yan's ear. Master, the hero Xiao Chen is Xiao Feng's biological son. He is also the son of the woman that Situ Haoyin has a crush on. Ah! Gong Sun Yen was stunned for a moment. He felt a gust of cold wind blowing over and his whole body shivered. His back suddenly became cold. He touched it with his hand and found that his back was completely soaked with sweat. Gong Sun Yen felt a strong sense of danger when he saw Xiao Chen staring at him coldly. He hurriedly said apologetically, "Little friend Xiao, about that, we're all working hard to enter the cultivation world. I'm very sorry about what happened to your parents, but this was all Situ Haoyin's despicable actions. I'm only his subordinate. You can't blame it all on me, right?" "Oh, according to what you said, this matter should be blamed on me and my parents being unlucky?" Xiao Chen laughed coldly and said, "You can only blame my mother for being too careless, catching the eye of that foolish old sect master of yours. You can only blame my father for being too careless, getting captured by the current sect master for no reason. You can only blame me for being too careless, getting targeted by you. You have no choice but to chase me down and kill me, right?" "No, I didn't." Gong Sun Yen was dumbfounded. He just wanted to shirk his responsibility. Why did he feel that something was wrong when he listened to Xiao Chen's words? "I think you are itching for a beating. You want me to beat you up to loosen your muscles and bones. Only then will you come to your senses." Xiao Chen thought that his parents might all be suffering, and his heart became more and more upset. He looked at Gong Sun Yen in front of him and felt even more disgusted. He could not help but clench his fists and take 2 steps forward. He knocked Gong Sun Yen down with 1 punch and then pounced on him. "Ouch, it hurts. Master Xiao, please don't hit me. I don't mean to blame your parents. It's a misunderstanding. It's all a misunderstanding." Gong Sun Yen had no time to dodge. He could only passively defend against the punches and kicks that fell on him like raindrops. He secretly cursed his bad luck. Although Xiao Chen only used ordinary punches and kicks, when they hit Gong Sun Yen's body, Gong Sun Yen felt unbearable pain. No matter how hard he tried to defend, it was useless. If he had not tried his best to protect a few vital parts of his body, he might have been beaten into a cripple. Naturally, Xiaoqin did not care about Gong Sun Yan's screams. He continued to beat Gong Sun Yan to vent the long-suppressed resentment and anger in his heart. After beating Gong Sun Yan for half an hour, Xiaoqin's anger finally dissipated. He stopped and looked at Gong Sun Yan condescendingly. He said coldly, "In order to enter the world of cultivators, you tried everything you could. This is not a big deal. But you actually took my father away and sent people to deal with me. This is your fault." "Hee, great hero Xiao, you can't say that. I didn't actually want to harm you after that. I just ordered people to protect you." Gong Sun Yan struggled to get up and said with a smile, his face bruised and swollen, "Old fart, you still have the nerve to say that? If it weren't for this young hero's intelligence and strength, I would have been killed by you a long time ago. Even the grass on my grave is taller than me now." Xiaoqin glared at him fiercely and said angrily, Yes. Master Xiao is very lucky. How could you die so easily?" Gong Sun Yan did not dare to refute. He could only put on a bitter face and smile apologetically. He also secretly glared at Elder Sunday. The meaning of this glare was obvious. Gong Sun Yan was reprimanding Elder Sunday. "Why didn't you explain the situation earlier? You made me get beaten up again for nothing. And I don't even have a place to reason with. You are really too blind." Feeling the anger and resentment in Gong Sun Yan's eyes, Elder Sun felt a little helpless. "Master, who told you to speak nonsense? You should at least wait for me to finish introducing Xiaoqian's identity. Once you know the ins and outs of the situation, it won't be too late for you to explain yourself. Alright, don't talk about these useless things." Xiaoqin waved his hand impatiently and said, "I can't be bothered to talk nonsense with you now. Immediately go and arrange for the person in charge of the Immortal Cultivator sect and the Ghost Cultivator sect to come here. I want to ask them personally what method is needed to allow people to enter the world of cultivators safely." Chapter 1265. Xiaoqin had already thought it through. Since Gong Sun Yan had some understanding of these two sects, he might as well let him run errands for them. There was no need for Xiaoqin to ask around and save a lot of time. Hero Xiao, you may not know much about the Immortal Cultivation sects and the Ghost Cultivation sects." When Gong Sun Yan heard this order, he immediately revealed a difficult expression. He hesitantly said, "They've always been arrogant and looked down on the other martial arts and demonic cultivators in the martial arts world. Even if I invite them, I'm afraid they won't listen to me." This request was really difficult for Gong Sun Yan. After all, the Immortal Cultivation sects and the Ghost Cultivation sects were very arrogant. Even if Situ Haoyan personally invited them, they might not be willing to come. "I don't care about this, you think of a way yourself." Xiaoqin casually waved his hand and glanced at Gong Sun Yan. "I'll give you 1 day. If you can't find them in 1 day, then I'll take your dog life. There's no point in keeping you alive anyway, what do you think?" After saying that, Xiaoqin shook his fist in front of Gong Sun Yan. Then he turned around and whispered a few words to Miss Xing afterward. He mounted the Bay's spirit beast and sped towards the teleportation formation. Since there was nothing else for him to do here, and Qing Minjing and the others were still guarding the array, Xiaoqin planned to bring the girls into Awakening Heaven Gate and settle them down. Jia Muzin had also been out for a long time, so he should go back to take care of his family's affairs. He couldn't stay outside for a long time with Xiaoqin. Seeing Xiaoqin disappear into the horizon, Gong Sun Yan and Elder Sun looked at each other in dismay. They were very depressed. Xiaoqin had given them a difficult problem. How could he invite those two secluded sects to come out in such a short time? Gong Sun Yan and Elder Sun did not dare to escape. Firstly, they had nowhere to go. Secondly, there were too many people in the martial arts world who hated Awakening Heaven Gate. Once they left, they would probably be chased by their enemies endlessly. The two of them first asked little Miss Xing to disperse the crowd of disciples standing foolishly in the plaza. Then, after a careful discussion, they finally managed to come up with a plan. Gong Sun Yan first sent someone to pass a message to the Immortal Cultivation sect and the Ghost Cultivation sect. He lied that he had found the perfect way to enter the Immortal Cultivation world and that the test was successful. He had already sent his subordinates over. Then he claimed that he was willing to share the results with the two sections. However, he needed each of them to send someone to Awakening Heaven sect to discuss the follow-up matters. Although this statement was a little unrealistic and Gong Sun Yan also felt that it was slightly inappropriate, there was no other way. At least he did not think that he was lying. After all, they had indeed sent the cyborgs into the Immortal Cultivation world. Even the current, former sect leader of Awakening Heaven sect, Sidu Qitian, had followed them in. It was just that they did not know the results for the time being. After receiving the news, the Immortal Cultivation sect and the Ghost Cultivation sect attached great importance to it. After all this time, they were personally invited by the Supreme Elder of Awakening Heaven sect. Moreover, they were indeed studying whether there was any other way to successfully enter the immortal cultivation world other than offering human sacrifices. They were in a state of panic. They did not expect the opportunity to take the initiative to send itself to their door. On the other hand, the Immortal Cultivation sects and the Ghost Cultivation sects were also quite vigilant. After they received the news, they held a meeting in their sections. They wanted to determine what was going on and what Gong Sunyan's purpose was. However, after discussing for a long time, the two sects could not figure out why Gong Sunyan wanted to do this. Although the news seemed to be very suspicious, they were not willing to miss this opportunity. In the end, after thinking about it, they decided to send people to Awakening Heaven sect to see the specific situation before making a decision. Early the next morning, the two people in charge of the Immortal Cultivation sect and the Ghost Cultivation sect rushed to Awakening Heaven sect with their subordinates. The person sent by the former was the old master of the Song family, Song Weizong, while the person sent by the latter was the great elder of the Ghost Cultivation sect, West Mountain Mad Demon. Both of them were influential figures in their respective sections. West Mountain Mad Demon of the Ghost Cultivation sect arrived at Awakening Heaven sect first. As soon as he was led into the living room, he heard a series of footsteps behind him. He turned his head slightly and glanced with the corner of his eye. He found that Song Weizong of the Immortal Cultivation sect had also arrived. "Hey old ghost Song, I didn't expect it to be you. A few years ago you were hit by Junyo's sect leader. I thought you were already dead. I didn't expect your old bones to be so tough. You're still struggling at death's door." West Mountain Mad Demon sneered. He didn't even bother to turn his face back as he sneered. In West Mountain Mad Demon's memory, Song Weizong had once led a group of disciples of the Immortal Cultivation sect to encircle and annihilate the Ghost Cultivation sect. In the end, he was suddenly attacked by his sect leader, Junyo, and was hit right in the heart. He almost died on the spot. That encirclement and annihilation failed miserably. West Mountain Mad Demon still remembered the panicked scene of the group of little ghosts of the Immortal Cultivation sect carrying Song Weizong back in a panic. It seemed that Song Weizong had been rescued. Finally, this Immortal Cultivation sect still had some ability. Humph. Before your Ghost Cultivation sect is completely eradicated, I, Song Weizong, will certainly not die easily. Song Weizong snorted coldly. Then you have to be careful. If one day lightning falls from the sky and strikes you to death, don't blame me for warning you. West Mountain Mad Demon sneered with a faint smile. I'm too lazy to talk to you about this kind of glib talk. Song Weizong glared at him and warned him with a murderous look. After you go back, tell that Junyo to be careful. Don't fall into my hands. Otherwise, I'll definitely make him die without a burial place. Song Weizong was obviously unwilling to talk to West Mountain Mad Demon. After saying this, he turned around and ordered the disciples of Awakening sect to pass the message. Hehe, I think you can't wait for this day. West Mountain Mad Demon retorted, unwilling to be outdone. Seeing that Song Weizong ignored him, he curled his lips and strolled around the living room. After Song Weizong sent the disciples of Awakening sect away, West Mountain Mad Demon rolled his eyes and pretended to be careless. I heard that in order to prepare for the opening of the Immortal Cultivation world, your Immortal Cultivation sect specially found a lot of women with spiritual chi from the secular world. Among them there was a top-grade girl with a mysterious Yin constitution. It seems that she was snatched from our Ghost Cultivation sect. Do you know about this? West Mountain Mad Demon had only received the news a few days ago. He heard that in order to capture a certain woman with spiritual chi in Songning City, the West Mountain Old Man had specially brought his disciples from the secular world to capture her. Chapter 1266. In the end, the Ghost Cultivation sect did not expect that the two of them would have a bad start. Not only did West Mountain Elder lose his life, but even the little girl who was supposed to be in his hands was also snatched away. Only Son Abayo managed to escape with great difficulty to report the news. What a bunch of trash. Are you talking like a human? What do you mean by snatching it away? Song Weizong frowned and said disapprovingly, even if we want to let people participate in the sacrifice, we have to ask for the consent of the person involved in advance. Unlike you Ghost Cultivation sect, who are worse than animals, you run into the secular world and casually capture those defenseless people. Song Weizong's tone was filled with deep disgust. Obviously, he was extremely dissatisfied with the ghost cultivation sect's approach. Ah, you're just using some sanctimonious words to gain the sympathy of those inexperienced little girls, and then promising them some money or cultivation as a lure. West Mountain Mad Demon laughed loudly, his voice full of contempt. Do you really think I don't know? What do you know? Song Weizong immediately retorted, we let them choose voluntarily. If they are unwilling, we will naturally not force them. West Mountain Mad Demon snorted from his nostrils and sneered unscrupulously, forget it. Coercion and temptation are two means to achieve the same goal. In essence, what is the difference between you and the ghost cultivation sect? You actually have the nerve to laugh at us. Your immortal cultivation sect is simply too hypocritical. You. Song Weizong was furious. He rolled up his sleeves and was about to rush over and teach West Mountain Mad Demon a lesson. However, he was stopped by a disciple of the Awakening Heaven sect who rushed over. The disciple felt the waves of killing intent echoing in the reception hall. He first panted a few times, then swallowed his saliva, braced himself, and stood between the two of them. He carefully reported, two distinguished guests, the Supreme Elder has been waiting in the conference room for a long time. I hope that the two of you can temporarily move to the conference room for a discussion. If there is anything else, we can talk about it later. Since the disciple of the host who invited them had said so, Song Weizong naturally could not continue to argue with Shishan Mad Demon. He could only glare at him angrily, then under the guidance of the disciple, he turned around and walked toward the conference room. Mad Demon Shishan snorted disdainfully and looked at Song Weizong's back with a gloomy smile. Then, he put away the evil aura on his body and followed the two of them to the conference room unhurriedly. Pushing open the door of the conference room, the two of them walked in one after another. They originally thought that they would see Grand Elder Gong Sun Yen of Awakening Heaven sect on the main seat, but when they raised their heads, they were stunned to see Gong Sun Yen standing obediently to the side, and a handsome young man sitting on the main seat. At this moment, the young man was sitting with his legs crossed, holding a cup of tea with a leisurely look on his face. He had no intention of standing up to greet them. It seemed that he didn't care about the two of them at all. Beside the young man, there was another fair-skinned man sitting there silently. However, Song Weizong and Mad Demon Shishan were both experienced cultivators, so they could tell that there was something wrong with this man. It was obvious that he was a woman dressed as a man. Please take a seat, the two of you. Thank you very much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to come. Awakening Heaven sect is deeply honored. I represent the sect master to express my gratitude to the two of you. Gong Sun Yen bowed slightly as thanks. There's no need for formalities. Elder Gong Sun must know why we are here, right? Song Weizong waved his hand and looked around the conference room. Other than the two sitting young men and Gong Sun Yen, there was no one else. He couldn't help but ask in surprise, I wonder why the Awakening Heaven sect master isn't here? Is he preparing materials to enter the immortal cultivation world? Song family master doesn't need to be anxious. Let me first introduce you. Gong Sun Yen made an inviting gesture and let Song Weizong and Mad Demon Shishan take their seats. Then he respectfully pointed at Xing Gongzi and said, This is the new sect master of our Awakening Heaven sect, Xing Gongzi. Song Weizong and Mad Demon Shishan were stunned when they heard this. They didn't bother to move their feet and looked at the fair-skinned little brother in confusion. Their faces were filled with disbelief. Gong Sun Yen felt that their surprised reactions were quite normal. Without waiting for them to ask, he immediately answered, Because our former sect master, Sidu Qitian, had important matters to attend to, he could no longer continue to manage the affairs of Awakening Heaven sect. Therefore, a few days ago he specially passed the position of sect master to Xing Gongzi. Now Xing Gongzi is in charge of Awakening Heaven sect. Song Weizong and Mad Demon Shishan were still very surprised. Awakening Heaven sect was an outstanding demonic sect in the inner martial arts world. How could the sect master be changed just like that? Moreover, they didn't inform the other sects of this news in advance. Could it be that there was some unknown inside story? Besides, since Xing Gongzi, who was disguised as a man, was the sect master of Awakening Heaven sect, why wasn't she sitting in the main seat, but another kid that they had never seen before? What was that guy doing here? The other one is... Gong Sun Yen saw the puzzled eyes of the two people. When he was about to introduce Xiao Chen to them, he hesitated a little. Xiao Chen suddenly took the initiative to introduce himself. Oh, I'm the personal bodyguard of Xing Gong Sun. I'm also an assistant, driver, accountant, administrative, and so on. My nickname is Ajian. Gong Sun Yin suddenly had a few black lines on his forehead. He didn't understand what Xiao Chen was up to, but since he had said so, he couldn't directly refute it. He could only nod silently with a strange expression on his face. The two people on the opposite side looked at each other and were even more puzzled. How could a small bodyguard and assistant sit in the main seat so openly? What was the background of this guy called Ajian? Didn't they agree to discuss a way to enter the immortal cultivation world? Why did such a person suddenly appear out of nowhere? Turning around, the two saw that Xing Gong Sun didn't raise any objections, and Gong Sun Yin, the supreme elder, also tacitly agreed with the statement of Ajian, as if what he said was reasonable. Although Song Weizong and Mad Demon Shishan were a little puzzled, after all, they were now in someone else's territory, so it wasn't good for them to express any opinions. They could only silently find a seat and sit down. Naturally, Xiao Chen could see the doubts in the hearts of the two, but he didn't intend to explain. He just put down the cup in his hand, glanced at the two lightly and then said, "Well, since everyone is here, let's not waste everyone's time. Who wants to talk about the plan to enter the immortal cultivation world first?" Chapter 1267. Boy, everyone here is a reputable figure in the martial arts world. You are just a little assistant who runs errands. What qualifications do you have to discuss the plan of the world of cultivation with us? Mad Demon of West Mountain knocked on the table slowly and asked in a neutral tone. Of course, West Mountain Mad Devil did not really think that Xiao Chen was just a handyman. However, since this guy was pretending to be stupid and refused to tell the truth, he did not intend to let him have his way. He simply played along and taunted him first. Anyway, there was no loss in taking advantage of him verbally. Song Weizong was relatively calm. Although he also had doubts about Xiao Chen's identity, he would not choose to act rashly before he figured out the situation. What's wrong with you? Have you become stupid after practicing evil arts? Didn't I just say that I can manage everything? Going to the world of immortal cultivation is a big thing, and I have to supervise it carefully. Xiao Chen rolled his eyes at West Mountain Mad Devil and shouted impatiently. You are just a little assistant. What the hell is there to supervise? Don't talk nonsense over there. I don't believe you. West Mountain Mad Devil suddenly became furious and shouted, slamming the table. Don't talk nonsense. It's up to you whether you believe it or not. Hurry up and tell me everything you know, then get out. Xiao Chen waved his hand decisively and did not even bother to look at him. Xiao Chen had never liked evil cultivators. If it were not for the fact that he wanted to inquire about the situation of the world of immortal cultivation, he would have killed West Mountain Mad Devil long ago. West Mountain Mad Devil was furious at Xiao Chen's arrogance. He jumped up and pointed at Xiao Chen fiercely, gritting his teeth and saying, "Say your grandmother's leg. I think you are looking for death." Before his voice died away, West Mountain Mad Devil had already activated his mental cultivation method. A black mist condensed on his body and tightly wrapped his arms. Then he quickly rushed in front of Xiao Chen, waving his fists and smashing them fiercely. Bang! A loud bang was accompanied by a cry of pain. A figure suddenly flew backward and hit the wall of the conference room before falling to the ground. It was the West Mountain Mad Demon who had just punched. Just now, at the moment when West Mountain Mad Devil punched out, he thought that Xiao Chen would definitely die. However, he suddenly felt his vision blur and he instantly lost track of Xiao Chen. Then there was a sound of something tearing through the air behind him. Mad Demon Shishan cursed in his heart, but it was too late for him to react. He could only grit his teeth and take the hit. Although he was prepared to defend himself, he was still sent flying. Everyone in the conference room was dumbfounded, especially Gong Sun Yin and Song Weizong. They were extremely shocked and couldn't believe the scene in front of them. Just now, West Mountain Mad Devil's punch was extremely domineering. The two of them speculated that even they might not be able to escape unscathed. They did not expect that not only was Xiao Chen unscathed, but he had also circled behind West Mountain Mad Devil at a speed that ordinary people could not see with the naked eye and kicked him hard. Song Weizong, who was originally rather indifferent, now had a somewhat grave expression on his face. He could not help but re-evaluate Xiao Chen, secretly estimating this fellow's strength. In all fairness, this guy was definitely not as simple and naive as he looked. This was because when he dodged West Mountain Mad Devil's attack and took the initiative to attack, he did not show his cultivation at all. In other words, Song Weizong couldn't even see Xiao Chen's dodging movements clearly. He could only feel that Xiao Chen was using extremely ordinary punches and kicks. However, just a few ordinary punches and kicks were enough to send Shishan Mad Demon flying into the wall. What exactly was this guy's strength? In the martial arts world, besides the giant bull of Shishan and the old man of the Hong family, there was no one who could make Song Weizong feel fear. Who would have thought that such a young junior would appear out of nowhere today? Which sect was he from? Xiao Qin watched West Mountain Mad Devil fall heavily to the ground, wiped his hands casually, stared at him and scolded, "Damn it, you're just an elder of a sect. Do you really think you're someone important? You really shine with a little sunlight and lay eggs with a chicken coop. If it weren't for the fact that you're still useful, I would have killed you long ago." After scolding him for a while, Xiao Qin did not seem to be satisfied. He rolled up his sleeves and walked over. He aimed at his stomach and kicked him hard, sending him flying into the air. Then he punched him hard in the face. Even the bystanders could feel the pain. Ah! West Mountain Mad Devil could not resist at all. He only had time to scream. He felt that his entire face was about to be deformed by Xiao Qian's fist. However, this was not the end. Next, Xiao Qian's fists came surging like a storm. West Mountain Mad Devil did not even have the chance to beg for mercy. He could only use his hands to protect the vital parts of his body, struggling to support himself. "Elder Gongsun, you deliberately invited us here. You didn't invite us here just to beat West Mountain Mad Devil up, did you?" Song Weizong could not stand it anymore. He turned his head and said to Gongsun Yen, "Although this guy really deserves a beating, I'm not interested in watching him get beaten up. If there's nothing else, I want to leave first." The entire conference room was filled with the sound of Xiao Qian's punches and kicks. Occasionally, West Mountain Mad Devil's screams could be heard. It was painful to listen to. Not to mention Song Weizong, anyone else would not be able to bear it. In fact, Song Weizong felt quite happy watching West Mountain Mad Devil being beaten up by Xiao Qian. It felt like he had vented his anger. However, his main purpose of coming here today was not to see West Mountain Mad Devil make a fool of himself. He wanted to understand the opening of the world of cultivation. Therefore he did not want to waste any more time. "Master Song, please wait a moment." Gongsun Yen quickly comforted Song Weizong. He then turned to Miss Xing with a bitter face and said, "That? Sect leader Xing, do you think you can ask Xiao Jian to stop for a while? After all, we still have other things to discuss. It's not a good idea to keep him waiting. What do you think?" Gongsun Yen naturally did not dare to provoke Xiao Qian directly. Wouldn't it be over if he got involved? Helplessly, he could only look for Miss Xing to help persuade him. From Gongsun Yan's point of view, Xiao Qian seemed to be interested in Miss Xing, otherwise, he would not have helped her seize the position of sect leader. Therefore Miss Xing should be able to persuade him. Miss Xing also understood what Gongsun Yan meant. She nodded, stood up and walked over. She gently pulled on the corner of Xiao Qian's clothes and said in a low voice, "Hey, that's enough. Don't you want to ask about the world of cultivation? Don't accidentally kill him. Otherwise, you won't be able to get anything out of him." Chapter 1268. "Oh, since Sect Master Xing is pleading on your behalf, I'll give her face and spare your life." Xiao Qian didn't object. He snorted and stopped what he was doing. He turned around and walked towards the main seat. Xiao Qian knew that West Mountain Mad Devil still had some value, so he did not go too hard on him. At most, he would make the old man feel pain for a while, but it would definitely not be fatal. However, although Xiao Qian stopped hitting, West Mountain Mad Devil did not have any intention of standing up. He was still curled up on the ground with his eyes closed. From time to time he would let out a low moan. It seemed that he was going to continue playing dead and did not intend to cooperate with Xiao Qian and the others. Slowly returning to his seat, Xiao Qian found that West Mountain Mad Devil was still lying on the ground and wailing. He was not angry but said slowly, "Trash from West Mountain, what's wrong? Are you trying to blackmail me? If you think that lying on the ground is more comfortable than sitting in your seat, then I will suffer today and directly cripple your limbs. This way you can lie on the ground for the rest of your life. What do you think?" "You win." Xiao Qian's threat fell into West Mountain Mad Devil's ears. He knew that Xiao Qian would do what he said, so he could only endure the pain on his body and stand up, grimacing in pain. He glared at Xiao Qian fiercely, but his face was already swollen, so the angry glare did not seem to have any deterrence at all. As West Mountain Mad Devil and Song Weizong's subordinates were blocked outside the gate of Qitian Gate, he had to rely on himself and limped back to his seat. Xiao Qian ignored West Mountain Mad Devil's muttering. After he sat down he said lightly, "Okay, I don't want to talk nonsense. This time, I invited the two of you here to ask how your preparations are going." Mad Demon of Shishan was still gasping for air due to the pain from the beating. Song Weizong was already surprised. Why couldn't he understand what Jian was saying? Since we're all going to enter the world of cultivation, then we should all work together. Don't split into 3 groups. You go in your group and I go in mine. That's a waste of time and energy. Moreover, if there's a problem, there's no way to solve it in time. Xiao Chen waited for a while and seeing that no one spoke, he added another sentence. Song Weizong couldn't help but say, Friend Jian, I've come to the Awakening Heaven sect to participate in this meeting because Elder Gong Sun sent us a message saying that the Awakening Heaven sect has already discovered a way to enter the cultivation world. That's why we've come to discuss it with him. Xiao Chen glanced at Gong Sun Yen. Gong Sun Yen was sweating profusely, but he didn't know how to explain. He could only nod with difficulty. Song Weizong looked at the two of them strangely and continued, So why don't you talk about how to enter the world of cultivation first, and then everyone can analyze it in detail? What do you think? Song Weizong was a little puzzled. It was clearly the Awakening Heaven sect who called him here, and from the looks of it, it seemed that the Immortal Cultivation sect and the Ghost Cultivation sect were going to cooperate with them. But now, they didn't mention a word about the way to enter the world of cultivation. What was the point of cooperating? Oh, that method won't work now because the only transmission array has been destroyed by that idiot Sidu Qitian. It can't send anyone else to the world of cultivation. Xiao Chen spread his hands and said unhurriedly. What? That Awakening Heaven palm. Did the former sect leader go to the world of cultivation? Song Weizong was shocked and immediately asked. He went in, but whether he's dead or alive is still unknown. Xiao Chen knocked on the table and said his final purpose. Because of this, I've specially asked the two of you to come here today. I want to ask you, is there any other way to enter the world of cultivation? If there is, you might as well share it with everyone. Song Weizong and West Mountain Mad Devil finally understood the ins and outs of the whole matter. Although Song Weizong was stunned when he learned that Sidu Qitian had entered the world of cultivation in advance, he quickly calmed down and was not too surprised. He lowered his head to think about something and did not immediately choose to agree or refuse. West Mountain Mad Devil was silent. He was very dissatisfied with Xiao Chen's attitude. It was obvious that the Awakening Heaven sect could not get any benefits themselves, so they took the initiative to cooperate with the Immortal Cultivation sect and the Ghost Cultivation sect, wanting to get a share of their plan. In the end, he even put on the posture of a master. This was simply treating others as fools. However, due to Xiao Chen's high strength, West Mountain Mad Devil did not dare to complain. He could only choose to remain silent. He planned to see how Song Weizong would deal with it before making a decision. As for Gong Sun Yen, who was standing on the side with his head down, he had long been defeated by Xiao Chen. Naturally, he had no opinion at all. Moreover, the Awakening Heaven sect's plan had completely failed. Of course, he was anxious to use other ways to enter the world of cultivation, so he could only listen to Xiao Chen's instructions at the moment. Seeing that both of them were in deep thought, Xiao Chen was not in a hurry to urge them. Instead, he said lightly, You don't have to rush to give me an answer for the time being. You can think about it for a while. Anyway, in addition to you, the people of the Awakening Heaven sect are also looking for other ways to enter the world of cultivation. When the time comes, they may enter before you. Song Weizong's expression changed for a while, as if he had suddenly made up his mind. He said, Jian, my little friend, please allow me to go out for a while and report to the sect first. After all, this matter is of great importance. I must discuss it with the people in charge of the other sects before I can give you a confirmation. After that, Song Weizong took out his mobile phone and apologized to Xiao Chen. Then he walked out of the door. It seemed that he was going to make a phone call. Xiao Chen waved his hand, leaned on the chair, and put himself in a comfortable position. Then he closed his eyes and rested, waiting for Song Weizong's return. When West Mountain Mad Devil saw this scene, he frowned slightly and thought to himself, Song Weizong, this fool won't be swayed by this, will he? In fact, as long as both the Immortal Cultivation sect and the Ghost Cultivation sect keep their mouths shut, that kid won't be able to get anything out of them. Since this guy named Jian claimed that they were confident of finding a way to enter the world of cultivation, then let him go and find it. Who knew when he would find it? Why should he share his own achievements with him? After waiting for a while, Song Weizong finished the phone call and returned to the conference room. As soon as he entered the door, he nodded slightly to Xiao Chen and said, Jian, my little friend, our Immortal Cultivation sect has discussed it internally. We are willing to cooperate with the Awakening Heaven sect. Since everyone's purpose is the same, if we can enter the world of cultivation together, we can take care of each other. Chapter 1269. What? Hearing this, Mad Devil of Shishan was really shocked. He never thought that the people of the Immortal Cultivation sect, who had always thought highly of themselves and acted alone, would actually be willing to cooperate with a young boy. What was going on? In fact, the Immortal Cultivation sect also had their own ideas. This time they had recruited relatively few women with spiritual energy. If they forcefully opened the sacrifice, it was very likely that they would not be able to open the passage. Instead, these women would be lost, and in the end they would suffer a double loss. The Ghost Cultivation sect seemed to have only captured a portion of people, and it was probably not enough. Since everyone was short of manpower, it was better to gather together. In this way, wouldn't they be able to enter the world of immortal cultivation? The most important thing was that if everyone went in together, they would be able to see how many people from the Ghost Cultivation sect had entered. This way they would not have to worry all day about how many people from the Ghost Cultivation sect had secretly entered and would be caught off guard. If everyone gathered together to open the passage to the world of immortal cultivation, it meant that the number of people from both sides would basically be equal. In this way they would also be able to deal with the situation appropriately. After all, whether it was letting the people from the Ghost Cultivation sect enter the world of immortal cultivation alone or letting them learn something and return with glory, it was not a good thing. It was best to let them be under his watch. Sure enough, Xiao Qin nodded with satisfaction. Then he turned to look at West Mountain Mad Devil and said, "What about the Ghost Cultivation sect?" "The Immortal Cultivation sect has already agreed. What do you say?" West Mountain Mad Devil did not speak for a long time. Song Weizong's attitude was unexpected. Originally, he thought that even if this guy did not refuse immediately, he would at least delay it for a while and test the other party's attitude. He did not expect that Song Weizong would agree so directly after going out to make a phone call. This made West Mountain Mad Devil suddenly panic, and for a moment he did not know how to deal with it. Seeing that West Mountain Mad Devil had been hesitating for a long time and did not give an answer, Xiao Qin could not help but sneer and mercilessly ridicule. It seems that the Immortal Cultivation sect is more reliable. They know when to advance and when to retreat, unlike those idiots from the Ghost Cultivation sect. They have to think back and forth for such a simple problem for a long time. I think we should not call them the Ghost Cultivation sect. Since there is something wrong with their brains, we should just call them the Brain Cultivation sect. You. Shishan Mad Devil was so angry that he gritted his teeth. He was an elder in the Ghost Cultivation sect, and his status had always been high and mighty. Other than the sect leader, Shishan Junyo, who could give him orders, everyone else was very respectful and fearful of him. When had he ever suffered such vexation? What, you and me? Should he cooperate or not? Good or bad? It was a simple decision. Hurry up and say it. This young master has no time to waste with you. Xiao Qin looked at West Mountain Mad Devil, who was angry but did not dare to speak. He could not help but slap the table heavily. His sharp eyes looked straight at West Mountain Mad Devil. Obviously he had lost his patience. West Mountain Mad Devil was startled by Xiao Qin's heavy slap on the table. He felt a cold killing intent coming straight at him. He was afraid that Song Weizong would kill him in anger, so he quickly waved his hand. His eyes wandered back and forth between Song Weizong, Xing Gongzi and Gong Sun Yen. After pondering for a while, a trace of viciousness flashed in his eyes, and he finally spoke. I can't give you an answer right now because I have to ask our sect leader, Shishan Junyo. If he agrees to participate in your operation, I naturally won't have any objections, West Mountain Mad Devil said in a hoarse voice. What the F***CK, is there something wrong with your Ghost Cultivation sect? You said you wanted to come over to discuss something, but you sent a guy who can't make a decision. Are you deliberately looking for trouble? Xiao Qin suddenly rolled his eyes and said impatiently, Then why are you still sitting here? Hurry up and call him to ask? Don't tell me you want me to invite you? That's not necessary. But before I ask, I have another request. Even if our Ghost Cultivation sect agrees to cooperate with you, it's only a one-sided alliance. West Mountain Mad Devil glanced at Gong Sun Yen and added, As for Awakened sect, because they didn't inform us before and chose to act on their own, and the plan to send people to the immortal cultivation world also failed, we naturally can't let them join us this time as punishment. When Song Weizong heard West Mountain Mad Devil's opinion, he also nodded slightly. Although the Immortal Cultivation sect and the Ghost Cultivation sect were not on good terms, they had a consensus on this point. With the help of an expert like Xiao Qin, the Immortal Cultivation sect was certainly happy to see it happen. However, Awakened sect was not very useful now. At best, it was of little value, so there was no need to take them to the immortal cultivation world and waste the existing resources. Xiao Qin yawned as if he suddenly thought of something. He said casually, I forgot to tell you just now. In addition to my part-time job in Awakened Sect, the current sect leader of Awakened Sect, Xing Gongzi, happens to be my wife. Cough cough. West Mountain Mad Devil had just picked up the water on the table and took a sip. When he heard this, he almost choked. He lay on the table and coughed for a long time. Xiao Qin couldn't be bothered with him. He spread his hands and continued, if you don't allow the Awakening Gate to participate in this operation, then my wife might be very unhappy. If she's unhappy, then I'll be unhappy. Once I'm in a bad mood, this plan of entering the world of cultivation might not go smoothly. It might even be put on hold. You guys have to think carefully. The reason why Xiao Qin used this reason to threaten the Immortal Cultivation Sect and the Ghost Cultivation Sect was to point out his relationship with Xing Gongzi. On the other hand, he wanted Xing Gongzi, the sect leader, to have a strong enough background. Even if he was not by her side in the future, she would be able to better establish herself in the inner martial world. Cough cough. I didn't expect it to be like this. After West Mountain Mad Devil pretended to cough for a while, as if he had just heard what Xiao Qin said, he put on a surprised expression and sighed. Since sect leader Xing and little friend Xiao Qin have such a relationship, of course, Awakened Sect can join. West Mountain Mad Devil did not expect that the two of them would have such a close relationship. He was not a fool. He knew very well that since the young man in front of him said it, he would definitely be able to do it. Now that he was under the control of others, he really had no choice but to agree. There seemed to be no better choice. Our Immortal Cultivation Sect has no objections. Song Weizong was very disdainful of West Mountain Mad Devil's hypocritical acting, but he still echoed his opinion. Song Weizong was also a little afraid of Xiao Qin. After all, Xiao Qin's strength was clear for all to see. Even if Song Weizong was not willing, he would not openly reject Xiao Qin on the spot. That was clearly an irrational action. He might end up like the West Mountain Mad Demon and get beaten up. Chapter 1270. Lady Xing, who was sitting next to Xiao Qin, blushed and looked very shy. She clenched her fists tightly and did not dare to move. She was a little nervous and embarrassed, but also a little excited. Was Xiao Qin's action a confession to her? Or did it mean that he had already acknowledged her? Little Xing remembered that Xiao Qin had said something similar back in the Venerable Realm. At that time she thought he was just spouting nonsense. Now that he mentioned it again, could it be that he really wanted to take it a step further and improve their relationship? Gong Sun Yen, who was standing at the side, was expressionless. He did not express any opinion about Xiao Qin's declaration of sovereignty. It was as if he had tacitly agreed to it. Gong Sun Yen had been immersed in the Awakening Heaven sect for a long time and had played many tricks. Therefore he knew very well that in the face of absolute strength, any trick would be ineffective. Therefore at this time he did not dare to show any dissatisfaction. In addition, Gong Sun Yan's character was to bully the weak and fear the strong. Although he was very ambitious, he was very timid. Otherwise, he would not have deliberately made so many moves after Situ Haoyan had left for so long. He had to make sure that Situ Haoyan would not respond. Now that Xiao Qin's strength was so high that even the Immortal Cultivation faction and the Ghost Cultivation faction, which he respected and feared, did not dare to act rashly in front of him. How could Gong Sun Yen dare to have other thoughts? He could only choose to surrender. Moreover, now that Xiao Qin had taken the initiative to let Awakening Heaven sect join because of his relationship with Xing Gongzi, Gong Sun Yen would not oppose it. Gong Sun Yen felt that if he could take advantage of this opportunity, he might be able to fulfill the wish that he had failed to achieve with his biohuman plan. He could use this opportunity to enter the world of immortal cultivation and obtain a higher level of strength. No objections, right? If not, then hurry up and ask for instructions. Do you believe that I will give you a kick as a plane ticket? Xiao Qin waited for a while. Seeing that everyone was silent, he glared at Mad Devil of Shishan and shouted fiercely. Mad Demon Shishan looked angry. His lips squirmed as if he wanted to curse a few times, but in the end he didn't say anything. He stood up and walked out of the conference room dejectedly. Song Weizong looked at the back of West Mountain Mad Devil and then looked at Xiao Qin's expression. He was wondering if he should leave first when Xiao Qin suddenly said with a smile, Song family head, now that the annoying old man from West Mountain is not here, I have something to ask you. Song Weizong was slightly taken aback, but he quickly waved his hand and said, I don't dare to ask for advice. Little friend Ajien, feel free to speak your mind. As long as this old man knows the answer, I will definitely tell you everything. After seeing how Xiaoqun dealt with the mad demon of Xishan, Song Weizong had developed a little respect for him from the bottom of his heart, so his attitude had unconsciously become a lot more polite. Oh, actually, it's nothing big. I just want to understand something from you. Xiaoqun didn't bother to beat around the bush and asked directly, I heard that your immortal cultivation sect can open the door to the immortal cultivation world through the method of sacrifice, right? How does this process work? Since it's a sacrifice, what kind of sacrifices do you need to prepare? As for the specific method of sacrifice, Xiaoqun was still confused. Thinking that Hong Zhu and Xie Fei needed to participate in the sacrifice, and that Goddess Shen might also be involved, he thought that it would be better to take the time to find out more about it while the Song family head was here. If there were any problems, he would be able to find a solution in time. This. Song Weizong's expression changed slightly. He stroked his beard and did not speak for a while. Although there was nothing strange on the surface, Song Weizong's heart was already in turmoil at this time. He was extremely surprised. How did this kid know about the sacrifice? Logically speaking, this matter should be the core secret of the Immortal Cultivation sect and the Ghost Cultivation sect. Even some of the elders in the family may not know about it. Where did he hear about it? And from this guy's tone, it seems that this matter is already set in stone, and there is no trace of testing. Who gave him this certainty? Looking at Song Weizong's changing expression and his hesitant look, Xiaoqun curled his lips and said with a faint smile, looking at Song family head's expression, could it be that the information I received was wrong? Or does Song family head feel that there is no need to tell me, a partner, the details of opening the door to the immortal cultivation world? No, little friend Ajien, please don't misunderstand. This old man doesn't mean that at all. Song Weizong shook his head like a rattled drum. He was afraid that if he accidentally angered this demon, he would be beaten up like the mad demon of Xishan. However, Xiaoqun refused to give up. He continued to ask, then Song family head, are you afraid that after I know the specific details, I will no longer cooperate with your immortal cultivation sect and turn around to make a fortune on my own? Sweat dripped down Song Weizong's forehead. He could only open his mouth with difficulty and say, that, our immortal cultivation sect does have the method of sacrifice, but as for the specific operation I'm also not very clear. This is because this is the common secret of the immortal cultivation sect. The relevant secret manual is still in the family's secret place. Only when the sacrifice begins can it be officially announced. Xiaoqun's face immediately darkened. Even a fool could see that Song Weizong was lying. As the dignified Song family head, how could he not even know the method of the sacrifice? Isn't this nonsense? Does he really think that he is a naive little rabbit who is ignorant of the world? According to what you said, even if I wanted to know the procedure of the sacrifice in advance and then make sufficient preparations in advance, it is impossible? Xiaoqun's tone had become somewhat dangerous. Actually, that may not be the case. Song Weizong swallowed his saliva and asked tentatively, how about I first discuss it with the other families? After all, the secret method of the sacrifice is a common item of our entire sect. This old man can only represent the Song family and cannot make decisions for others. If they do not object, this old man will tell you the entire method of the sacrifice. What do you think, little friend Ajien? Song Weizong could naturally see that Xiaoqun was already a bit unhappy. However, he also did not want to hand over his trump card so quickly. In desperation, he could only choose to use a delaying tactic to buy some time before making a decision. Could it be that other than the Song family and the Hong family, there are other families participating? Xiaoqun was a bit surprised. Previously, when Gong Sunyin had mentioned it to him, Xiaoqun had thought that those unknown small families were only some martial cultivators and demonic cultivators, or even ordinary people who were only there to do manual labor. Chapter 1271. But according to Song Weizong, those families were also cultivator families. He had thought that the number of cultivators in the inner martial arts world was very small, but now it seemed that the scale was quite large. Yes, because the Song family and the Hong family have a relatively deep foundation and a relatively large number of people, the other small families elected us as leaders to deal with some routine affairs. However, opening the world of immortal cultivation is of great importance, and the sacrificial method really needs everyone's consent before it can be taken out. Our two families dare not make decisions in private. Please forgive us, little friend Jian. Song Weizong did not even dare to breathe as he explained with a bitter face. Okay then, let's do as you say. Xiao Qin did not force him this time. Instead, he nodded and said faintly, if you have made a decision, come and tell me immediately so that I can prepare in advance. After all, Xiao Qin did not have any deep hatred with the immortal cultivation sections. They were all cultivators, so there was no need to push them too far and make enemies for themselves. Anyway, it was not the time for the sacrificial ceremony yet. A few more days was fine. Thank you, little friend Jian. I'm going to call the other families right now. As soon as there is news, come and inform me immediately. Song Weizong's worried heart finally fell to the ground at this moment. He hurriedly cupped his hands in gratitude, then wiped the cold sweat on his forehead, took out his mobile phone and left the conference room in a hurry. Xiao Qin shook his head when he saw Song Weizong's flustered look. He found it a little funny. The effect of his beating just now was pretty good. These people looked at him as if they were looking at a scourge or ferocious beast. Fortunately, the sacrificial ceremony had not started yet, so Xiao Qin was not so eager to know the process. Now that everything was under his control, there was no need to make enemies for no reason. Therefore, Xiao Qin let Song Weizong and West Mountain Mad Devil go and interrogate them separately, which could be regarded as a buffer period for them. While Song Weizong left in a hurry, West Mountain Mad Devil finally found a secluded place in a corner of Open Heaven Gate and stood still. West Mountain Mad Devil looked around warily, making sure that no one was eavesdropping around, then picked up his mobile phone and immediately dialed a phone number on the screen, waiting anxiously for the other party to answer. Mad Demon, what did Awakening Heaven Gate say? Mad Demon Shishan waited for a long time before the phone was connected. Then a man's cold voice came. It sounded as stiff and emotionless as a dead man's. Reporting to Sect Master, Situ Qitian is no longer the Sect Master of Awakening Heaven Sect. He has passed the position of Sect Master to a little girl named Xing Gongzi. West Mountain Mad Demon did not dare to be negligent and hurriedly reported. Xing Gongzi? Xing Gongzi? Shishan Giant Yak seemed to be slightly surprised, but its voice did not waver. It was still very rigid. It repeated the name several times as if trying to remember if it had heard of this person before. Most importantly, when I came here this time, I found out that there was a guy named Jian by the girl's side. He's very powerful. I wanted to test him just now. Mad Devil Shishan told him everything about how he was beaten up. Again? Where did this person come from? Shishan Giant Yak was really a little surprised this time. After all, the strength of West Mountain Mad Demon was already outstanding in the martial arts world. Who else could beat him to the point that he could not fight back except for those old ghosts of the immortal cultivation sect? Shishan Giant Yak did not care too much about the change of the sect master of Awakening Heaven Gate. If someone could defeat West Mountain Mad Demon, he would only frown a little. However, when the two things were combined together, Shishan Giant Yak had to pay attention to it. Could it be that in addition to the Ghost Cultivation sect and the Immortal Cultivation sect, there was a higher level sect in the martial arts world? Could it be that Awakening Heaven Gate had taken refuge in that sect, so this time they were specially called to demonstrate? Xing Gongzi, Jian. Shishan Giant Yak repeated these two names several times. He kept searching the memory in his mind, but found that he had no impression of these two people at all. Since he could not remember for a while, Shishan Giant Yak simply put this matter aside and asked, speaking of which, didn't Awakening Heaven Gate claim to have found another way to enter the world of immortal cultivation, so they called you over? Did you find out what method it was? Is Gong Sun Yen, that old thing, fooling us? Sect Master, you are right. Gong Sun Yen is indeed fooling us. Shishan Mad Demon suddenly slapped his thigh and shouted angrily. What? Shishan Giant Yak's tone suddenly rose. He was obviously a little angry. He said fiercely, when I received the news, I felt that things were a little strange. That old guy never gets up early without benefits. Why did he come to us to share it? What is going on? Tell me in detail. Qitian men had indeed discovered a teleportation formation leading to the world of cultivators, but it had been destroyed by Situ Qitian due to a freak accident. Although he himself was transmitted to the world of immortal cultivation with the help of that array, it is unknown whether he is alive or dead. Shishan Mad Demon shook his head helplessly and honestly repeated what Xiao Chen had just said. How could it be so coincidental? Situ Qitian is really a piece of trash. Shishan Mad Demon couldn't help but curse angrily. After thinking about it, he felt that something was wrong and asked, that's not right. Since this method has failed, why did he deliberately call you over? Just to let you know about this tragic thing? Or to tell them that the sect master has been changed? No, Awakening Heaven Gate wants to cooperate with our Ghost Cultivation sect and the Immortal Cultivation sect to enter the world of immortal cultivation using our method. Shishan Mad Demon replied. F***Seek. Shishan Mad Demon originally wanted to curse, but considering his identity and status, he forcibly held back and said in a gloomy tone, Awakening Heaven Gate really has a good plan. Did you agree to them? Not yet. Shishan Mad Demon quickly denied, but Song Weizong went out and made a phone call. After he came back he agreed to cooperate, so I slipped out and called you. Hearing this, Shishan Mad Demon's mood became very depressed. Originally, the number of women with spiritual chi that the Ghost Cultivation sect had collected was not enough. If they wanted to forcibly start the sacrifice, it would inevitably be a little difficult. Shishan Mad Demon still hoped to use the method provided by Awakening Heaven Gate to directly enter the world of immortal cultivation without the sacrifice. He did not expect such an unforeseen event to happen. Instead, Awakening Heaven Gate wanted to share a piece of the cake with them. Chapter 1272. Sect Leader, why don't we ignore them? Why don't we send people to look for other women with spiritual chi? Shishan Mad Demon waited for a long time and didn't see his leader speak, so he suggested, didn't we sense 2 of them near the Jia family of the inner martial arts world? I'll send someone to catch them. Maybe we can get enough people in this way. In fact, the women with spiritual chi that the Ghost Cultivation sect sensed near the Jia family were Ling and Ling Chenxue. However, they didn't dare to catch them at that time. The Ghost Cultivation sect was originally a sect that couldn't be seen in the light. They were the type of people who were hated by everyone. Although they were not afraid to fight against the Jia family alone, if the Jia family became angry and joined forces with other sects and families to fight against the Ghost Cultivation sect, then this matter would be troublesome. Absolutely not. Shishan Giant Bull immediately rejected this idea and said in a deep voice, now Chi Tian sect, the leader of the demon sect in the internal martial arts world, is eyeing us covetously, waiting for the fishermen to profit from the fight. It is really unwise to offend the Jia family, one of the 3 big families. You must not act rashly. I didn't think it through. Shishan Mad Demon responded dejectedly. Shishan Mad Demon pondered for a moment, and suddenly a sinister idea flashed in his mind. He immediately ordered coldly, how about this? Since Jian wants us to cooperate, and the Immortal Cultivation sect has agreed, why don't we beat them at their own game? Next, you go and promise Jian that we can cooperate with them, and then... Shishan Mad Demon laughed strangely as he revealed the sinister plan that he had just come up with. As expected of the leader of Shishan Mad Demon. After listening to the plan, Shishan Mad Demon repeatedly praised, if this plan succeeds smoothly, then our Ghost Cultivation sect will slaughter the Immortal Cultivation sect sooner or later. At that time, we can take all the other sects and families under our command, and we no longer have to hide in the inner martial arts world. At this point, the Mad Demon of the Shishan Mountain could not help but chuckle. He looked very proud of himself. It was as if he could already see the people of the Immortal Cultivation sect being trampled under his feet and the scene of the Ghost Cultivation sect dominating the martial arts world. Don't think about this for now. Hurry up and get things done. I'll ask someone to send those girls over later. Shishan Giant Ox had regained his composure, and his voice became as stiff and rigid as before. Alright. I'll wait for your news, sect leader. West Mountain Mad Demon quickly stopped laughing, hung up the phone and ran back to the conference room. After returning to the conference room, Mad Demon of Shishan found that Song Weizong was no longer there. However, the few people from Awakening Heaven sect were still there. Without thinking too much, he immediately found Xiao Chen with a smile and expressed that the Ghost Cultivation sect was willing to cooperate with Awakening Heaven sect. During the cooperation period, they could provide all kinds of cultivation resources that little friend Xiao Chen and the others from Awakening Heaven sect needed to express their sincerity. After listening, Xiao Chen nodded slightly, indicating that he already knew, and sent Mad Demon of Shishan Mountain away. Originally, Mad Demon of Shishan Mountain thought that Xiao Chen would be flattered by his enthusiasm, but it turned out that he was splashed with a basin of cold water. Although he was dissatisfied, he did not dare to show it. He was afraid that Xiao Chen would beat him up again if he was unhappy. So, he had to leave the conference room obediently. Looking at the back of Mad Demon of Shishan Mountain, Xiao Chen's expression was a little solemn. He was not too interested in the so-called cultivation resources. On the contrary, the Ghost Cultivation sect was hesitant before, but they agreed so readily. Xiaoqun keenly guessed that there should be some conspiracy behind this. If it was just the Ghost Cultivation sect's conspiracy, Xiaoqun would not be too concerned. He estimated that the other party only had the leader of Giant Ox who was a little more powerful. However, coupled with the slightly vague attitude of the Immortal Cultivation sect just now, it made Xiaoqun a little uneasy. If the Ghost Cultivation sect and the Immortal Cultivation sect both objected to Awakened sect's continued participation in the sacrificial ceremony and threatened not to hand over the sacrificial ceremony method, then it would be difficult for him to fight against the two sects at the same time. Xiaoqun knocked on the table rhythmically as he pondered with a frown. If he wanted to find a few helpers, it would be a little difficult. Apart from the Jia family and Awakening Heaven sect, which Xiaoqun could deploy, the other sects and families in the martial arts world did not have any relations with him. Moreover, even if they were willing to help him, he would not need them at all. This was because the Immortal Cultivation sect and the Ghost Cultivation sect were all cultivators. Even if he mobilized all the experts of the Jia family and Awakened sect, they might not have the strength to compete with the other party. On the contrary, they might be completely annihilated. Xiaoqun was not willing to risk the lives of other innocent people. He had to think of another way. After instructing Gong Sun Yen to properly arrange the food and lodging for Song Weizong and West Mountain Mad Devil, Xiaoqun bade farewell to Miss Xing and then stood up to leave the conference room. As he walked, he pondered over a more suitable method. Back in his room, Xiaoqun sat at the table with a sullen face. Chapter 1273. Sigh, if I could recover, I would at least have a higher chance of success. Now. Xiaoqun sighed and frowned even more. Compared to this matter, I think there's another problem that you need to consider now. Before Xiaoqun could finish speaking, the Elder Heaven Ancestor suddenly said in a serious tone. What's wrong? What happened? Xiaoqun was slightly stunned. There was something wrong with the tone of the Elder Heaven Ancestor. You've been busy these few days, so I haven't found a chance to tell you. I guess you haven't realized it either. Ever since you ordered in Xiaoma to merge with the flames of the underworld and successfully tricked Bai Zhe, and Xiaoma's primordial spirit has been dissipating. I guess he'll disappear completely after a while. The Elder Heaven Ancestor explained with difficulty. What? How could this be? Xiaoqun was shocked. He had been busy dealing with the matters of the Immortal Cultivation world and had been busy with external affairs. He did not pay much attention to the condition of the two primordial spirits in his body. When he heard the Elder Heaven Ancestor's words, he was shocked. Xiaoqun immediately checked in Xiaoma's primordial spirit and found that it was indeed as the Elder Heaven Ancestor had said. The primordial spirit was indeed fading. Even if he wanted to transfer his primordial spirit to treat him, it would be useless. Don't waste your primordial spirit. It's useless. It's precisely because the attribute of the flames of the underworld's primordial spirit restrains the attribute of Xiaoma's primordial spirit that the injury is irreversible. The Elder Heaven Ancestor stopped Xiaoqun's futile efforts and explained slowly, if you hadn't asked them to merge to deal with the spiritual beast, and Xiaoma's primordial spirit wouldn't have been burned. Now, even using primordial spirit won't be able to help him recover. I'm sorry, Xiaoma. I didn't expect that you wouldn't even be able to protect your primordial spirit in order to save me. You're about to turn into ashes. Xiaoqun stared at Xiaoma's dim primordial spirit and muttered, if I had known this would happen, I would have thought of another way to deal with Bai Zhe. Xiaoqun was feeling very guilty at this moment. He did not realize that the problem would be so serious. Although he had captured Bai Zhe as a mount, he had paid the price of Xiaoma's primordial spirit. The price was too high. It's all right. As long as Master is fine, it's fine. And Little Demon said weakly, anyway, I've already lived for so many years. I'm content. With every sentence Xiaoma spoke, his primordial spirit dimmed a little. It was obvious that he could not hold on for much longer. All right, don't say anything. Xiaoqun hurriedly stopped Xiaoma from answering, which consumed his primordial spirit. He then asked, Elder Heaven Ancestor, you're so knowledgeable and knowledgeable. Is there no way for Xiaoma to recover? Although Xiaoma's original purpose of occupying Xiaoqun's body was to allow him to be reborn, Xiaoqun no longer blamed him. Instead, he hoped that he could be saved. After all, Xiaoma had been with him for so long. He was diligent and hardworking. He had already made up for his mistakes. Moreover, the reason why he was injured this time was to save Xiaoqun's life. There is a way, but it's very troublesome. Elder Heaven Ancestor pondered for a while, then sighed and said, you must first find a suitable container to put in Xiaoma's primordial spirit in. Then, take him to a place with sufficient demonic qi so that he can absorb enough demonic qi to recover. Where am I supposed to find a container in such a short period of time? Even if I find one, I don't have a suitable place for Xiaoma to absorb demonic qi. Xiao Qin smiled bitterly. He suddenly thought of something and quickly asked, Elder Heaven Ancestor, I remember you once said that my primordial qi can be transformed into anything in the world, right? Can't I use my primordial qi to inject it into him? Not yet. Elder Heaven Ancestor rejected Xiao Qin's suggestion and explained, because Xiaoma's primordial spirit relies on demonic qi to survive. Although primordial qi can also be transformed for his use, his primordial spirit is so weak. There's no way for him to absorb your mutated primordial qi. It will only make him dissipate faster. Do I have to break into the lair of the Ghost Cultivation sect? There is enough demonic qi there, but I'm afraid that Xiaoma will die before I get there. Xiao Qin said with a bitter face. In fact, Xiao Qin had another worry. If he went to the lair of the Ghost Cultivation sect and the two sides got into a fight, it would be hard to say if he could escape unscathed, let alone help Xiaoma recover his demonic qi. Right. I have another way. Elder Heaven Ancestor was silent for a while, then suddenly shouted. Oh my God, Elder Heaven Ancestor, you scared me. Xiao Qin suddenly shivered and said angrily, if you have a way, say it quickly. What's with all the fuss? Xiao Qin was really speechless at Elder Heaven Ancestor. At this time, this old urchin still had the time to keep him in suspense. Didn't I just think of it? Elder Heaven Ancestor smiled a little awkwardly and quickly described. First, use your primordial qi to make a barrier just like what you did in the Venerable Realm. Make it 100 times smaller, then release Xiaoma's primordial spirit from your body and put it in the barrier to protect it. Put it in the barrier? What's the use of that? Xiao Qin asked doubtfully, can my barrier be a container for his primordial spirit? Of course not. Do you think your barrier is so omnipotent? Elder Heaven Ancestor first refuted Xiao Qin mercilessly, then explained with a little excitement. After you release Xiaoma's primordial spirit, fuse it into the flying sword. When your flying sword has a primordial spirit, it can be reforged by the fire of the underworld. Are you serious? Can this work? Xiao Qin listened to Elder Heaven Ancestor's joking idea and asked suspiciously. Of course it can. If you don't believe me, who else can you believe? The more Elder Heaven Ancestor said, the happier he became. He continued with a smile, when you're done, not only can you protect Xiaoma, but you can also use the flying sword. Xiao Qin frowned and thought for a long time. He found that apart from this method, he really couldn't think of any other solution, so he had no choice but to accept Elder Heaven Ancestor's suggestion. However, before building the barrier, Xiao Qin said worriedly, I say, Elder Heaven Ancestor. In this way, although Xiaoma's primordial spirit is saved, he still can't absorb the evil qi. Should I find a time to go to the Ghost Cultivation sect's territory? I find that you're really stupid and naive. Elder Heaven Ancestor lectured, won't the Ghost Cultivation sect send people over in a few days? At that time, those people will definitely be escorted by a lot of evil cultivators. As long as you kill a few of them with the flying sword, won't Xiaoma's primordial spirit be able to absorb the evil qi? Chapter 1274. Originally, Song Huawu and Xiao Xiao had no intention of coming to Awakening Heaven sect. When Hong Zhu and the others brought the injured Song Qingshu and third young master Hong back to the Hong family, they had told them that they had met Xiao Qin in the Venerable Realm. He looked fine and was not kidnapped by anyone, nor did he seem to be injured. What the F***ck? How the F***ck is this possible? Xiao Qin could naturally hear that the Elder Heaven Ancestor was scolding him, but he didn't care too much because this was really a good idea. Although Song Qingshu didn't have a particularly good impression of the demonic cultivator, in any case, the two sides would be considered to have a cooperative relationship in the future. Since he was in the territory of Awakening Heaven sect, he couldn't treat them lightly. Little Miss Xing and Song Qingshu didn't have much friendship before, and now that the Ghost Cultivation sect hadn't arrived yet, she didn't plan to meet second young master Song so soon. Unexpectedly, the other party took the initiative to greet her. Could it be that there was a problem with their sacrifice? Master. Thank you so much. I didn't expect you. And Xiaomo was very grateful to Xiao Chen for his rescue, but before he could express his gratitude, he felt that he had been covered by a transparent cover. After about an hour or so, the bluish-purple flames emitted by the fire of the underworld gradually weakened. At the same time, a brand new flying sword appeared in front of Xiao Chen. This time, with the integration of Xiaoma's spirit, the new flying sword seemed to be sharper than before, and there was a faint black light. Not long ago, little Miss Xing had received the news that Song Qingshu had come to Awakening Heaven sect. It seemed that he had come to send something to Song Weizong, and she heard that he had brought a few beauties with him. However, when he saw that Xiao Chen was also present and standing behind Xing Gongzi, Song Qingshu couldn't help but be stunned for a moment. A trace of doubt flashed in his eyes and he muttered in his heart, "Why is this kid here?" And it seems that his relationship with sect leader Xing is quite close. Is he a disciple of Awakening Heaven sect? No wonder he was so arrogant in the venerable realm. What is this fellow doing here? Hearing that Song Qingshu had come over, little Lady Xing couldn't help but mutter in surprise. Most importantly, Xiao Chen could feel that in Xiaoma's primordial spirit in the flying sword was safe and sound. It was no longer fading and about to disappear like before, but had stabilized. The next step was to wait for the ghost cultivation sect to send someone over so that Xiaoma could have a full meal. She glanced at Xiao Chen, who was beside her, and saw that he was also at a loss. It seemed that he didn't know what Song Qingshu was here for either. Xiao Chen summoned his flying sword and couldn't wait to test it in the open heaven gate. He found that the flying sword's flying speed seemed to be faster than before. It was even faster than Bai Zai's running speed. However, Jin Beibei, who was the most active in looking for Xiao Chen, didn't agree with this plan. She always had a strong hunch that if she went to the Jiao family she would find nothing. Instead, she would meet Xiao Chen and Cheng Menjing in the open heaven gate. Now that the elder heaven ancestor had guaranteed that everything would be fine, there must be no mistake. Xiao Chen's mood turned gloomy. He said eagerly, "Then let's not waste time. I'll make a primordial qi barrier for Xiaoma now. Nethery, you're in charge of forging the sword. Hurry up." After some spying, Hongzhu finally learned that Xiao Chen had joined the Jiao family's team. As a venerable mentor, he led the Jiao family to cultivate in the secret realm. Fortunately, after seeing Xiao Chen, Hongzhu already had a clear direction to look for. He was no longer as clueless as before. Seeing Miss Xing's pleading eyes, Xiao Chen nodded slightly. He didn't object. Miss Xing received the signal. She waved her hand and said, "Got it? Let him in." After meeting up with Song Weizong and helping the girls settle down, Song Qingshu stood at the door of the room for a long time. He decided to pay a visit to the new sect leader, Xing Gongzi. Along with Hongzhu, in addition to Xin Jingxian and Xia Fei, there were also 3 girls, Jin Beibei, Song Huawu and Xiao Xiao. They were also in the team. Xiao Chen was afraid that Xiaoma would speak again and consume more of his vital spirit. He immediately made a barrier with his primordial qi and sealed his vital spirit in the body of the flying sword. Then he urged the fire of the underworld to recast the flying sword as soon as possible. While treating Song Qingshu and third young master Hongzhu sent Hong Ying's team to gather information about the team entering the venerable realm. Before they set off, Hongzhu told Song Huawu and the other 2 girls that Xiao Chen had settled in the Jia family. Therefore, Song Huawu and Xiao Xiao wanted to set off to the Jiao family to find Xiao Chen's whereabouts while Hongzhu and the others were going to open Heavenly Gate. Not long after the disciple left, Song Qingshu strode into the room with her head held high. When the girls heard this, they were excited and comforted. They kept asking Hongzhu and Xin Jingxian about other things about Xiao Chen. Only then did Hongzhu and the others remember that they knew nothing except that Xiao Chen had entered the venerable realm with Cheng Menjing. When they received this news, Song Weizong happened to send back the news that Open Heavenly Gate intended to cooperate with them. The Song family and the Hong family discussed and decided to let Song Qingshu, who had just recovered from her injuries, lead Hongzhu and the others to Open Heavenly Gate. Jin Beibei had always believed in her premonitions. This time, in order to persuade Song Huawu and Xiao Xiao to go to Open Heavenly Gate together, she tried all kinds of ways. In the end, the 2 girls could not resist her eloquence and had no choice but to agree. A group of female soldiers set off in a grandiose manner. Sect leader Xing, the second young master of the Song family, has come to visit and is waiting in the side hall. When Xing Beibei and Xiao Chen were discussing the sacrificial ceremony, a disciple of Open Heavenly Gate knocked on the door and came in. He reported respectfully. As the cultivation sects wanted to start the sacrificial ceremony as soon as possible, they moved relatively fast. Just one day later, Song Qingshu, who had recovered from her injuries, led a group of guards from the Cultivation sects and escorted Hongzhu, Hong Yan, and a few other girls with spiritual qi to open Heavenly Gate and met up with Song Weizong. Elder Heaven Ancestor was speechless about Xiao Chen's straightforward character. Since someone would come to him, why would he waste his energy to go to their house? Moreover, he might not be able to settle everything even if he went there. The Xiao Chen was so stupid. Chapter 1275. Lady Xing waited for a while. When she saw that Song Qingshu was staring at Xiao Chen in shock and did not take the initiative to state the purpose of his visit, she could only say, "Young Master Song, I've troubled you to bring the sacrificial items here. You must be tired from the long journey, right? I wonder if you and your companions are used to the accommodations and food that the Awakening Heaven sect has prepared?" "It's quite good," sect leader Xing is very considerate. Little girl Xing's voice caused Song Qingshu to return to his senses. Only then did he realize that he had been a bit rash, so he hurriedly expressed his thanks. Little girl Xing waved her hand and indifferently said, "It's what I should do. If you have any special requests, feel free to mention them. I will do my best to make them better." "Then I will thank sect leader Xing in advance." Song Qingshu took out an exquisite wooden box from his bosom and forced a smile on his face. "In order to congratulate you on becoming the new sect leader of the Awakening Heaven sect, our immortal sect has specially prepared a small congratulatory gift. I hope that sect leader Xing will kindly accept it." Little girl Xing was slightly startled. She stood up and received the box, then placed it on the table. Without opening it, she smiled and expressed her thanks. "Young Master Song is very thoughtful. The Awakening Heaven sect is very grateful for the congratulatory gift." Originally, Song Qingshu was just going through the motions. He wanted to use the gift as an opportunity to promote the relationship between the Immortal sect and the Awakening Heaven sect. Seeing that little girl Xing had accepted the box, he did not plan on saying anything more. He cupped his hands and prepared to leave. However, before he could open his mouth, he saw a hand suddenly reach out and pick up the box on the table. Song Qingshu was immediately startled. He opened his mouth to shout, only to see Xiao Chen swagger out from behind little girl Xing. "Let me take a look. What kind of things have been delivered?" Xiao Chen chuckled and raised his eyebrows. He casually picked up the wooden box and opened it in one go. "You. Rude." Song Qingshu hadn't expected Xiao Chen to do this. Her eyes immediately burned with anger, and she glared fiercely at Xiao Chen. The sect master hadn't even said anything, yet you, a sect disciple, had casually opened a guest's gift. "Don't you know your place?" Xiao Chen couldn't be bothered with Song Qingshu's accusations. He looked down at the things in the box and found that they were all precious treasures and a few rare healing pills. After carefully identifying the treasures in the wooden box, Xiao Chen curled his lips in disdain. If it was in the past, he might have thought that these things were quite high-end. However, during this period of time, under Sky's guidance, Xiao Chen had gradually learned to distinguish which herbs were relatively rare and which were common goods that weren't worth mentioning. He wasn't like in the past where he viewed everything as a treasure. "I say, aren't your cultivation sects too stingy? These things can be found everywhere on the street. How can you take them out? Do you really think that our Awakening Heaven sect Master Xing hasn't seen anything good?" Xiao Chen snorted and casually threw the wooden box on the table. In reality, Xiao Chen's words were a bit exaggerated. The treasures in the box were not bad, but compared to the ones he had collected in the Venerable Realm, they were clearly several streets behind. Having already seen good things, Xiao Chen naturally didn't place these herbs in his eyes. "Arrogant fellow. This is a congratulatory gift from our sect to sect Master Xing. You are just a small disciple. What right do you have to look through it? How many good things have you seen? What right do you have to say that these treasures are everywhere?" Song Qingshu felt humiliated and couldn't help but retort angrily. If it weren't for sect Master Xing's face, Song Qingshu would have already beheaded Xiao Chen on the spot. A small fry from the Awakening Heaven sect, relying on the fact that he could stand by the sect master's side, dared to speak without thinking. Did he really think that their sect was easy to bully? "Of course I've seen a lot." Xiao Chen crossed his arms in front of his chest and expressionlessly said, "Our sect Master Xing has traveled to famous mountains and rivers since she was young. She has seen countless rare and precious herbs. She has already lost interest in these things since she was 3 years old." Little girl Xing secretly rolled her eyes. Xiao Chen really knew how to talk. When did she run off to travel? Why don't I have any recollection of it? Sneaking another glance at the opened wooden box on the table, little girl Xing discovered that there were quite a few good herbs and pills inside. She couldn't help but mutter to herself, Song Qingshu's congratulatory gift is quite good. Even if it's not good, it's still a token of goodwill. Why is Xiaoqin being so picky? Could it be that he and Song Qingshu have a grudge in the past? Isn't this not giving him any face? Little girl Xing pondered over her own thoughts, but in Song Qingshu's eyes, her silence was seen as tacit approval of Xiaoqin. Song Qingshu was somewhat unhappy. How could he make a mistake when he sent a gift? However, he was currently in someone else's territory, so Song Qingshu endured and didn't flare up. He just casually cupped his hands and said, since the Awakening Heaven sect doesn't like the things of our sect, then you can do with this congratulatory gift. Goodbye. Hey, wait a moment. Without waiting for Song Qingshu to leave, Xiaoqin suddenly called out to him, why are you leaving just like that? Considering that you're new here, we'll let bygones be bygones this time. Go and prepare another congratulatory gift. At least send some top-level heavenly materials and earthly treasures, cultivation manuals, top-grade elixirs and so on. Bring all the valuable things over. Valuable things? What do you think counts as valuable? Song Qingshu was so angry that he laughed and asked coldly. Xiaoqin rubbed his chin and seemed to think seriously for a while before saying, well, it has to at least be able to enter the eyes of our sect master Xing. My ass. Brat, I think you're really courting death. I already let you off in the venerable realm. Do you really think I'm afraid of you? Song Qingshu was completely infuriated by Xiaoqin's attitude. He circulated his mental cultivation method and instantly displayed his venerable level 5 cultivation. A majestic pressure swept towards Xiaoqin. Xiaoqin frowned slightly. It wasn't because of the pressure. After all, he was an expert of the profound ascension stage. To him, this little bit of pressure was basically negligible. It was just that Song Qingshu's impulsive attitude made Xiaoqin feel a little unhappy. Could it be that this brat still couldn't see the situation clearly? This was the Awakening Heaven sect's territory. He actually wanted to act rashly in front of the sect master Xing. Was this really okay? Sure enough, when the little girl felt the pressure, her face immediately darkened. She was very dissatisfied with Song Qingshu's behavior. She said coldly, young Master Song, isn't it a little inappropriate to teach a disciple of our sect in front of this sect master? Chapter 1276. Although she was somewhat puzzled by Xiaoqin's mocking of Song Qingshu, Xing was naturally biased towards Xiaoqin's side. Moreover, she was very clear that Song Qingshu was definitely not Xiaoqin's opponent. Xing Gongzi had taken advantage of the fact that the two hadn't started fighting to resolve the conflict between the two sides. Xing Gongzi also wanted to save Song Qingshu's life. If Xiaoqin got angry and killed Song Qingshu, then the Immortal Cultivation sect would use this as a reason to make things difficult for them. Hearing Xing Gongzi's voice, Song Qingshu was stunned for a moment. His head, which had been clouded by anger, instantly sobered up. He also realized that what he had done wasn't very appropriate. Although he only wanted to teach Xiaoqin a lesson, they were currently in Awakening Heaven sect. If he made a move against a disciple in front of the sect master, it would be a serious matter. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that the Immortal Cultivation sect was provoking Awakening Heaven sect. Apologies, sect master Xing. I was too impulsive. In order to avoid trouble, Song Qingshu took a deep breath and suppressed the anger in his heart. He said indifferently, I have never seen the behavior of your disciple before, so I was presumptuous and wanted to help sect master Xing teach him a lesson. I was overstepping my boundaries. Song Qingshu was somewhat dissatisfied with sect master Xing's behavior of shielding his disciple. Therefore, although he apologized, his words were still full of sarcasm. He didn't feel apologetic at all. Forget it. Both of you are in the wrong. Just restrain yourselves a little. Xing Gongzi waved her hand and mediated. She could naturally hear the sarcasm in Song Qingshu's words. However, Xing Gongzi didn't care too much in order to keep the peace. She only pretended that she didn't hear it and casually said, no matter how heavy the congratulatory gift from the Immortal Cultivation sect is, this sect master is very grateful. I will accept it. Young Master Song must be tired after a whole day of traveling. You should return to your room and rest. Song Qingshu wasn't stupid. Anyone could see that Lady Xing was biased towards Xiaoqin. He felt even more disdain for Xiaoqin's act of living off a woman. However, he had no other choice. He could only cup his hands at Lady Xing and say, "If that's the case, I'll take my leave." After saying that, Song Qingshu glared fiercely at Xiao Chen again. Thinking that he would teach this brat a lesson sooner or later, he stormed off in a huff. "Amazing. You actually managed to escape unscathed after acting tough in front of this young master. Your luck is pretty good." As he watched Song Qingshu leave angrily, the corners of Xiao Chen's mouth curled up as he mocked in a voice that was neither loud nor soft. Song Qingshu hadn't gone far, so he naturally heard Xiao Chen's deliberate words. However, he could only pretend that he didn't hear it now. He repeatedly thought about how he could find an opportunity to beat up Xiao Chen. It would be best if Xing Gongzi didn't find out. As he pondered, he returned to his residence. Song Qingshu couldn't vent his anger, so he sat unhappily in the outer hall. As long as he thought about Xiao Chen's arrogant and despotic face, Song Qingshu would feel a fire from the soles of his feet all the way to the top of his head. He was very unhappy. In order to calm his mood, Song Qingshu simply picked up the teapot on the table and poured himself a cup of water. When he was about to drink it, he was scalded again. "Damn it, even a cup dares to bully me." The infuriated Song Qingshu slammed the cup on the ground and smashed it into pieces. "Qingshu, what's wrong with you? Who are you so angry with for no reason?" Song Weizong heard the commotion and quickly walked out from the inner room. He looked strangely at the broken cup on the ground and asked in astonishment. In Song Weizong's impression, although Song Qingshu was usually a little arrogant, he was still quite rational. Even when he was angry, he had never smashed a cup. This time it seemed a little abnormal. Hong Zhu and the other women were chatting in the room. When they heard the commotion, they also ran out to see what was going on. In the end, they found Song Qingshu fuming with anger and smashing cups. The women all revealed looks of contempt on their faces. This person was too much. How could he throw a tantrum in Qi Tianmen's residence? He even smashed other people's cups. Did he really think that this was his own Song family and he could do whatever he wanted? "Grandfather, you really can't blame me for this. It's all because of that follower of sect Master Xing. He's simply too much." Song Qingshu's anger had yet to dissipate. She slammed the table heavily and vented her anger. "What did you say? Sect leader Xing's follower? Did you provoke Ajian?" Song Weizong was shocked and could not help but break out in a cold sweat for Song Qingshu. The tragic scene of West Mountain Mad Demon being beaten up was still vivid in his mind. He did not expect that Song Qingshu would offend Ajian so soon after coming to Qi Tian sect. Song Weizong was also really anxious. He immediately said with a sullen face, "Before you set off from the Song family, I had already told you. After you arrived at Qi Tianmen, I reminded you again that you must not have any conflict with Ajian. Not only is he the mastermind behind Qi Tianmen, but his strength is also outstanding. Even West Mountain Mad Demon is just a piece of trash in his hands. How could you be so careless? Hurry up and apologize to him." "Grandfather, what are you talking about? I didn't see Ajian. Besides, you have already reminded me so many times. How could I make such a mistake again?" Song Qingshu saw that Song Weizong was so anxious that his face was red. He quickly waved his hand and explained, "The person I am talking about is Xiao Chen. He's the fellow I mentioned to you when I returned from the Exalt Secret Realm." It turned out that Song Qingshu had been seriously injured in the Venerable Realm. After Hong Zhu and the others carried him back for treatment, he found a time to talk to Song Weizong about everything that happened in the Venerable Realm. Naturally, he mentioned that Xiao Chen had helped the women break through. When Song Weizong heard about this, he was also very surprised. He repeatedly reminded Song Qingshu that if he met Xiao Chen again in the future, he must invite him back to the Song family. After all, Xiao Chen's ability could be said to be rare in the world. If he could be used by the Song family or even the entire Immortal Cultivation sect, it would save a lot of detours for the disciples of the sect. Before Song Weizong could speak, Song Huawu, who was standing to the side, suddenly heard Xiao Chen's name. Her whole body trembled and she rushed over, grabbed Song Qingshu's collar and asked loudly, "Song Qingshu, what did you say just now? Xiao Chen is also in Qi Tianmen? You have seen him?" Hearing Song Huawu's shout, the women also came to their senses. They all had different expressions. Before Song Qingshu could answer, Jean Beibei's loud voice rang out, "Ow, ow, ow. Xiao Chen's cousin-in-law is really here. Super Prophet Bei's sixth sense is working again." Chapter 1277. Jean Bebe was so excited that she almost danced. She quickly ran to Song Qingshu, grabbed his sleeve and asked impatiently, "Hey, Song something, have you seen my cousin Cheng Menjing? Is she with Xiao Chen's cousin-in-law? Are they married? Did they have a baby?" Hong Zhu and Xie Fei looked at each other, feeling very surprised too. Didn't they hear that Xiao Chen was in the Jia clan? Why did he come to Open Heaven sect and work as leader Xing's subordinate? The Jia clan was one of the three major clans which was supposed to be hostile to Open Heaven sect, the leader of the dark sects. Xiao Chen was a bit far away. Did he offend someone from Open Heaven sect in the Venerable Realm? Was that why he was captured? Xin Jingxian did not know much about the situation. She had thought that she might never see Xiao Chen again. She did not expect to hear that he was also here. She was a bit excited. Unlike Jean Bebe and Song Huawu, she was not as emotional as Jean Bebe and Song Huawu. She just blushed and clutched her sleeves tightly. Her slightly trembling body showed the surging emotions in her heart. Lin and Xiao Xiao on the other hand looked a bit unnatural. Although they had received the news of Xiao Chen again, and he was already very close to them, they were not particularly happy. Lin's impression of Xiao Chen had always been his scary look. Although she knew that Xiao Chen was not what she imagined, she did not know how to face him for the moment. As for Xiao Xiao, she was a bit bothered by Jean Bebe's words. Whenever she thought that Xiao Chen was together with Cheng Menjing, she would feel sour in her heart. The calmest person in the entire hall should be that little girl Hong Yan. She didn't care much about the big pervert Xiao Chen, but just like Hong Zhu, she was surprised that Xiao Chen was in the open heaven gate. During this time, Hong Yan learned that there were so many girls around her who liked Xiao Chen. Although her hatred for him didn't decrease, she was more curious about him. Song Qingshu paid no attention to Jean Bebe's surprised behavior. Instead, she looked at Song Huawu and said in a low voice, "Oh, I know you like that kid Xiao Chen. But you've really misjudged him this time. Not only does he oppose our immortal cultivation sect in all aspects, but he has also become a lackey of Awakening Heaven sect, hugging sect master Xing's thigh and flirting with him." Oh, Xiao Chen's cousin-in-law has caught the eye of the sect leader again? My cousin-in-law is so awesome. Jean Bebe waved her little fist in the air and cheered loudly. Humph, in the secret realm of the Venerable Realm, if I had remembered that he was the guy that Huawu liked, I would have killed him a long time ago. Song Qingshu snorted. Then she said to Song Huawu in a gentle voice, "Huawu, you are my only biological sister. I don't want you to be fooled by that scumbag Xiao Chen. Although he is in Open Heaven sect right now, I advise you not to go to him." Song Qingshu had always been disgusted by the arrogant Xiao Chen. Now that she knew that he had so many women around him and that he was hooking up with the leader of Open Heaven sect, she was even more convinced that he was not a good guy. How could Hua Wu be with such a scumbag? Absolutely not. Thank you for your kindness, but Xiao Chen and I have always been in a free relationship. I won't mind no matter how many girlfriends he has. Song Huawu had calmed down a little. She let go of Song Qingshu's collar and said calmly, "Now you only need to tell me where Xiao Chen is. You don't have to worry about anything else." Song Huawu's eyes were extremely firm at this moment. Song Qingshu's accusation did not seem to affect her at all. She still insisted on her idea. "Exactly. I didn't criticize you before, but I can't stand it this time. Song Qingshu, aren't you being too nosy? Besides, Xiao Chen saved your life before. I didn't expect that you would speak ill of him behind his back. How ungentlemanly you are." Hong Zhu rolled his eyes. Apparently, he was also very dissatisfied with Song Qingshu's attitude. Right. We like to play threes, fourths and fifths with our cousin-in-law. You don't have a girlfriend, but you are jealous of your cousin-in-law. That is not the right attitude. Jean Bebe shook her head and lectured him. However, after she said a few words, Jean Bebe suddenly felt that her hand was secretly pinched by Xiao Xiao. She turned around and asked in confusion, "Xiao Xiao, why did you pinch me? Am I wrong?" Xiao Xiao opened her mouth and wanted to say something, but she did not say it. In the end she said helplessly, "Well, forget it. You can play if you like." Although she did not say it, Xiao Xiao was still a little bit worried. Jean Bebe was too imaginative. She talked about this and that in front of two men. Didn't she see that the other girls were all blushing? She even said it in such a loud voice. She really had no eyesight at all. "Huawu, I'm thinking for you and the cultivation sects, not for myself. Why did you?" Song Qingshu tried hard to persuade Song Huawu with a bitter face. He really could not figure out what was on his sister's mind. That Xiao Chen was absolutely a scumbag. What was so good about him that Huawu liked him so much? Before Song Qingshu could finish his words, Song Huawu waved her hand and interrupted him impatiently. Song Qingshu, I'll repeat it to you again. I've never regarded you as my brother, so stop preaching to me. Now you just need to tell me and us sisters where to find Xiaoqin. I won't listen to anything else even if you tell me. Huawu is right. Song Qingshu, just tell us quickly. Don't waste our time. Hong Zhu and the other girls echoed. This Song Qingshu was too long-winded. They really didn't want to listen to his nonsense anymore. If it weren't for the fact that they had just arrived at the open heavenly gate and were unable to move freely, they would have rushed out to find Xiaoqin. Well, okay. Song Qingshu sighed gloomily and said, Xiaoqin is in sect leader Xing's room, but they seem to be discussing something important. You. Before Song Qingshu finished his words, Hong Zhu and the other girls had already run out of the hall. They were not in the mood to listen to him at all. They ran as fast as the wind and disappeared in an instant. The hall, which was originally full of people, became empty in an instant. Apart from Song Qingshu, who was livid, only Song Weizong, Kerlin and Hong Yan were left in the hall. Hong Yan was not interested in meeting Xiaoqin. She was not on good terms with Xiaoqin and did not want to see him again. Therefore she did not go with Hong Zhu and the other girls. Instead, she prepared to return to her room and cultivate quietly. Chapter 1278. As for Kerlin, her movements were a beat too slow. By the time she reacted, the hall was already empty. Kerlin looked around in a panic. She bit her lower lip and pondered for a moment. Although she felt that it would be a little awkward to see Xiaoqin, there was no one close to her at the moment. The only person she could get close to was Xiaoqin. After thinking for a while, she greeted Hong Yan and walked out of the hall, carefully following behind Hong Zhu and the other women. After the women ran out of the residence, they immediately found a disciple of the Awakening Heaven sect. After asking for the location of little Miss Xing's room, they all rushed in that direction. Song Qingshu's words were stuck in her throat. She stared at the empty door with an ugly expression on her face. Qingshu, to tell you the truth, I also feel that you didn't handle this matter properly. Seeing that Song Qingshu was still sulking, Song Weizong shook his head and said earnestly, think about it, Xiaoqin saved your life. At the very least, he is your benefactor. No matter how much you dislike him, you should go and thank him. Grandfather, you didn't see how arrogant Xiaoqin was just now. He didn't care about me at all. How am I supposed to thank someone like him? Song Qingshu gritted her teeth in anger when she recalled the scene just now. She couldn't accept Song Weizong's advice at all. Qingshu, what you said is wrong. Song Weizong lectured in a low voice. How others act arrogantly is their business. You can't waste your courtesy. We cultivators can't be as selfish as the ghost cultivators. Yes, Grandfather Song is right. Hong Yan nodded and agreed with Song Weizong. I was also present in the Venerable Realm. At that time, third brother Hong and second young master Song had already fainted. If it wasn't for Xiaoqin driving away that ferocious beast, we might have been left there and never returned. Although she did not quite approve of Xiaoqin, Hong Yan still understood the principle of repaying a drop of kindness with a gushing spring after receiving a drop of water from him. Song Qingshu looked at Hong Yan in confusion and asked, Hong Yan, why are you speaking up for Xiaoqin? You've seen that guy's temper. He's the kind of guy who won't forgive when he's in the right. Even if he's being unreasonable, he'll still argue. He never considers other people's feelings. I can't communicate with him. Actually, I don't think he's that unreasonable. At most, he's a little arrogant. Hong Yan frowned. She looked at Song Qingshu and said, even if he really is that kind of person, he did save all of us in the venerable mystic realm. No matter what, we should thank him, shouldn't we? If you don't want to see him alone, why don't we go together? In fact, Hong Yan had her own reasons for making this suggestion. Although she didn't dare to meet Xiaoqin, ever since Xiaoqin left in a hurry in the venerable realm, she had been thinking about thanking him. Since there was such an opportunity, Hong Yan wanted to bring Song Qingshu along. At least with someone to boost her courage, it wouldn't be too awkward. Oh, Hong Yan is right. We cultivators always know how to repay kindness. We can't let others be disappointed. Song Weizong nodded in agreement with Hong Yan's words. He turned around and patted Song Qingshu's shoulder. He said calmly, think about it carefully. Once you've made up your mind, go talk to Xiaoqin with Hong Yan. Even if he's not willing to help the cultivators, maybe you two can become good friends? After persuading Song Qingshu, Song Weizong turned around and returned to his room. He still had to study the sacrificial ceremony method carefully, so he didn't care too much about these trivial matters. Since it was a matter between the young people, he would let them solve it themselves. Song Qingshu didn't speak for a long time. His expression changed several times and he couldn't decide what to do. On one hand, he felt that his grandfather's words were reasonable, but on the other hand, Xiao Chen was too arrogant. If his temper flared up and he couldn't help but injure Xiao Chen, then not only would he offend the Awakening Heaven sect master Xing Hongzhu, and the others would definitely condemn him in both word and writing, criticizing him in all sorts of ways. While Song Qingshu was hesitating, unable to come to a decision, Hongzhu and the other girls were already filled with joy and excitement. Like a flock of butterflies, they flew across a garden and walked along the weeping willow path next to the man-made lake for the time it took for half an incense stick to burn. Finally, they arrived at the door of Xing Girl's room. Jean Bebe ran to the door first. When she was about to push the door open, a roar suddenly echoed not far away. The few girls turned around, only to see a team of guards wearing the uniform of Awakening sect running close. They stared at them warily and shouted, "Who are you? What's your purpose in coming to sect leader Xing's room?" "Young man, we are all the girlfriends of Xiao Chen's cousin-in-law." Jean Bebe waved her hands and said in a hurry, "Stop asking so many questions. Just let us in." Hardly had she concluded her sentence when Jean Bebe was about to barge into the room in a hurry. However, before she took 2 steps closer, the captain of guards had already stopped her. "What nonsense are you talking about? What girlfriends and cousin-in-law? This is the room of sect leader Xing of Awakening sect. Why is your cousin-in-law here?" The more the captain of guards listened, the more he felt that something was wrong. Why was the girl talking so incoherently that he could not even understand what she was saying? "I know that this is your leader's room. My cousin-in-law is right inside." Jean Bebe grew anxious. She pushed away the captain's hand and charged into the room. "Stop right there." The captain of guards blinked and stopped in front of Jean Bebe again. With a grave face, he revealed the cultivation of the peak of the 5th level of the Devil King realm and scolded coldly, "How did you get into Awakening sect? Are you spies sent by other sects? Surround them." The last sentence was spoken to his subordinates. The group of guards immediately spread out upon hearing this, and they glared fiercely at Jean Bebe and the others. They were waiting for the guard captain's order and were prepared to capture them at any moment. "Cousin-in-law, Bebe is here for you. Don't hide in the room anymore. Come out and explain. If you don't come out, your favorite Jean Bebe will be taken away." Seeing that the situation was not right, Jean Bebe immediately took a deep breath and shouted into the room. Squeak. The captain of guards was both shocked and infuriated to see that Jean Bebe was still yelling. He was about to give the order to capture them when he suddenly heard the door open behind him. Then a man and a woman strode out. They were exactly Xiao Chen and Lady Xing. Chapter 1279. "Bebe. It's really you? What are you doing here?" Hearing the familiar shout, Xiao Chen was startled. After he walked out and saw the scene in front of him, he was so surprised that his mouth was wide open. Pushing away the captain of the bodyguards in front of him, Xiao Chen turned around and looked at the few girls behind Jean Bebe. With disbelief on his face, he rubbed his eyes and took a closer look. In the end he blurted out in shock, "Hua Wu, Xiao Xiao, Kerlin. How did you guys end up together? What's going on here? Hongzhu, Consort Xie and Jingxian, why are you here too?" Xiao Chen felt as if he was in a dream when he saw the face that he had been extremely familiar with but had not seen for a long time appear before his eyes once again. He thought that it was an illusion set up by a cultivator expert like him. He hurriedly released his divine sense and scanned the surroundings. However, he did not find any traces of strangers at all. What was going on? Xing was not familiar with Jean Bebe and the rest of them. Therefore she was confused too. However, when she turned around she happened to see Kerlin, who was standing at the back of the girls. Her eyes immediately shone. She knew Kerlin. Wasn't she the pretty girl from the breakfast stall that Xiao Chen had a crush on? After connecting the dots, Xing basically guessed the identity of the various beautiful girls in front of her. She was not as shocked as Xiao Chen. Instead, she winked at the captain of the bodyguards and gave him a few instructions in a low voice. The captain of the bodyguards had thought that he would be punished for mistaking an honorable guest. He was feeling uneasy, but as it turned out, not only was Leader Xing not punishing him, but he was also delegating tasks to him. Feeling both grateful and ashamed, he immediately left with his subordinates in a hurry to carry out Leader Xing's orders. Xiao Qin. Is it really you? I'm not dreaming, am I? The courtyard was silent for a moment, then Song Huawu's emotional voice suddenly rang out. The rims of her eyes reddened in an instant, and tears kept rolling down her cheeks. She rushed to Xiao Chen with large strides and carefully looked at him a few times. Like a young swallow returning to the forest, she threw herself into his arms and sobbed softly. Xiao Xiao was a step slower. She originally wanted to throw herself into Xiao Chen's arms, but Song Huawu beat her to it. She had no choice but to walk over and hold Xiao Chen's hand. She choked and said, "Brother, where have you been these days? Why didn't he call his family? We all miss you very much. My grandfather and my father have sent many people to search for your whereabouts. They're almost going crazy with anxiety." Ao. Cousin-in-law Xiao Chen, is that really you? Jean Bebe rubbed her eyes hard. Although she was usually carefree, she was so excited that hot tears were brimming in her eyes right now. Jean Bebe had been standing in front of Xiao Chen. Right now, Song Huawu was in Xiao Chen's arms and Xiao Xiao was next to him. Therefore, she simply took a detour and walked to Xiao Chen's back. Then she suddenly jumped on his back and hugged Xiao Chen tightly. She shouted, "Cousin, where did you and cousin Menjing go? When I returned to the villa, I found that you were both not there. I thought that the Qing family and the Xiao family had gone bankrupt. Hey Bebe, you seem to have grown bigger again. You are much heavier now." Caught unprepared, Xiao Chen was strangled by Jean Bebe heavily. He immediately felt that it was hard for him to breathe. However, the soft and fragrant scent on his back made him feel rather comfortable. How long had it been since Jean Bebe called him cousin? 1 year? 2 years? While supporting Jean Bebe in case she fell off, Xiao Chen had mixed feelings in his heart. He had imagined what it would be like to meet the girls again countless times, but he did not expect that they would show up at the same time. Lin Ke stood at the edge of the courtyard, silently looking at Xiao Chen. Although she also felt an indescribable impulse in her heart when they reunited after such a long time, and really wanted to rush up and hug him tightly, she still endured it. She still stood where she was and did not act as boldly as the other girls. Besides, Lin did not dare do that. After all, she was not Xiao Chen's family. She was not even Xiao Chen's official girlfriend. The two of them were merely classmates. Although Xiao Chen had confessed his love to her before, Lin did not say yes at that time. Therefore, she did not have an appropriate identity to do something as bold as Song Huawu. She could only stand aside and watch Xiao Chen quietly. As for Xin Jingxian and Xie Fei, they were not as excited as the other girls. They simply observed the scene with a smile on their faces. They had just met Xiao Chen a few days ago. Although the joy of their reunion was intense too, they did not forget themselves. Therefore, they naturally gave up the special power to Jean Bebe and the rest of them, who had been searching for Xiao Chen for such a long time. After all, they had found Xiao Chen now and they would have a lot of time to spend with him. There was no need to rush. Naturally, Hongzhu did not make any big movements. Instead, he stood where he was and watched Xiao Chen being surrounded by a group of girls with great interest. Hongzhu very much wanted to find an opportunity to tease Xiao Chen and tease this little boy. However, when he saw him hugging Song Huawu and the other girls tightly, he somehow felt touched and a little jealous, as if he was envious that they could be so intimate with Xiao Chen. In fact, Hongzhu also had a vague good impression of Xiao Chen, but he did not think that they had reached the level of intimacy yet. Among all the people present, the one who felt the most uncomfortable should be Miss Xing, who was standing behind Xiao Chen. Seeing that he was so busy with Song Huawu in his arms and Xiao Xiao holding his hand tightly, and even carrying Jean Bebe, the beautiful girl with the face of an angel and the body of a devil, Miss Xing felt a little uncomfortable. However, Miss Xing did not show it obviously because it was normal for an expert like Xiao Chen to have multiple wives and concubines in the martial arts world. She had long been used to it. However, she could not help but feel a little jealous when she encountered such a scene. Moreover, Xiao Chen did not have multiple wives and concubines at all. There were already 8 women standing in the yard. Together with Cheng Menjing, Ling Chenxue, and the others in the backyard, they could almost form a female army. Miss Xing could not help but secretly roll her eyes at Xiao Chen. "Let's see if you can handle it. Bebe. Why did you come to the Heavenly Awakening Gate? Xiao Xiao is here too?" Just when Xiao Chen was flustered and did not know what to do, a surprised voice suddenly sounded. It turned out that Cheng Menjing had rushed over. "Wow, so many people. I didn't expect Sister Sour to have so many sisters. My husband Xiao Chen is really awesome." Tian Sour exclaimed as she popped her head out from behind Cheng Menjing. Ling Qianxue Linger and Tang Tang also followed her into Miss Xing's yard. Chapter 1280. As it turned out, Miss Xing had guessed that those people were Xiao Chen's old friends. That was why she had asked the captain of the guards to summon Cheng Menjiang and the rest of them from the backyard. Menjiang. Cheng Menjiang was looking around when she suddenly heard a familiar voice. She turned around, only to discover that Xin Jingxian was walking toward her in delight. Jingxian. What? Why are you here too? Isn't it too much of a coincidence? Cheng Menjiang's eyes shone. She also ran to Xin Jingxian in a hurry. The two of them soon held hands. They were both excited to reunite with their best friends who had not seen each other for a long time. Tang Tang and the other girls found an empty space in the yard and stood still. They had all seen that Xiao Chen was surrounded by a bunch of beautiful girls, but they were not very surprised. They had heard about the past from Xiao Chen on their way to explore the inner martial arts world. Therefore they were rather calm at this moment. Oh. Cousin Menjiang, I finally get to see you. Bebe misses you so much that I've almost gone crazy. Although Jean Bebe said that she did not intend to leave Xiao Chen's shoulder at all. She was still hugging him tightly and only waved one of her hands as a greeting. Bebe, hurry up and get down. You're a girl. What are you doing in broad daylight? What are you doing? Seeing Jean Bebe's behavior, Cheng Menjiang had no time to catch up with Xin Jingxian anymore. She immediately scolded Jean Bebe with her hands on her hips. It was obvious that she was very dissatisfied with Jean Bebe's behavior. Forget it, Menjiang. Bebe has always been doing whatever she wants. You know that. Besides, she hasn't seen Xiao Chen for a long time. It's rare for her to be so excited. Just let her be. Xin Jingxian carelessly tucked her long hair behind her ear. With a smile on her face, she shook Cheng Menjiang's hand and said gently, "No, Jingxian, look." Cheng Menjiang turned around. She was about to complain to Xin Jingxian about Jean Bebe's lack of propriety when she saw Jean Bebe flipping her hair. Her eyes almost popped out of their sockets. She couldn't help but murmur, "Jingxian, you were already very beautiful. How come you seem to have become even more beautiful?" Xin Jingxian pursed her lips and smiled. Just as she was about to reply, little Miss Xing's voice suddenly rang out, "All right, everyone, let's not stay outside. If you have anything to say, let's talk inside. There are often guards and disciples walking around here. It wouldn't be appropriate to let them see it." After she finished speaking, little Miss Xing generously gestured for everyone to enter her room. Afterwards, she ordered a disciple to bring some snacks and fruits to entertain everyone. Little Miss Xing's room was quite spacious. However, after more than 10 people crowded in, the room was somewhat full. Thankfully, other than Xiao Chen, the rest of the guests were all slender and beautiful women. Even though they were crowded together, they were still very pleasing to the eye. Also, the girls did not care too much about it. The moment they entered the room, they split into several groups and chatted with each other. After all, some of them were very good friends in the past. They had been reunited after a long time, and they had all experienced different lives. Naturally, they began to talk about the stories that had happened recently. After entering the room, Xiao Chen was originally full of questions. He planned to ask them one by one about what had happened when he was away, how Song Huawu, Jean Bebe, and Xiao Xiao met each other, and how they had come here together with Hongzhu and the others. However, before he could ask any questions, he had already learned the whole story from the chatter of the girls. Xiao Chen could not help but sigh inwardly. The fate of the world was really wonderful. People who were originally not even close to each other had become good sisters who depended on each other because of him. Tang Tang and Xin Jingxian chatted for a while. Then, she rolled her eyes and glimpsed a person standing silently in the corner. After taking a closer look, she found that it was Ker Lin. She walked over and greeted her with a smile. "Sister Ker, why are you standing here alone in a daze? Come and chat with us." "Hello, Sister Tang Tang. I'm not very familiar with them, so I won't go over. It's fine to stand here." Ker Lin blushed. She hurriedly waved her hand and said in a low voice in embarrassment. Seeing Ker Lin's reaction, Tang Tang shook her head with a smile and said, "I haven't seen you for such a long time, but you are still so timid and shy. I really don't know what to do with you. By the way, how are your parents? Are they still selling noodles in the morning market street?" A trace of joy appeared on Ker Lin's face when she mentioned her parents. Her tone also became lively. "Thank you for your concern, Sister Tang Tang. My parents are in good health. It's all thanks to Sister Hongzhu for providing help to my family." "Hongzhu? What kind of help can she provide you?" Tang Tang showed a very surprised expression. She had heard Xiaochen mention Hongzhu 2 days ago, but how did she get involved with Kerlin's parents? Sister Hongzhu specially found someone to cure my father's old illness. She also changed my family to a new house and let my parents move out of the shanty town. I really don't know how to thank her. Kerlin's voice was very grateful. Obviously, she was deeply impressed by Hongzhu's help. Are you serious? Why is Hongzhu so good to you? Does she owe you a big favor? Tang Tang felt even more puzzled. Hongzhu's behavior really surprised her. Logically speaking, Kerlin was just an ordinary person in the secular world. Basically, it was impossible for her to be friends with Hongzhu. It's not like that. Kerlin shook her head and explained, actually it's like this. I was captured by a bad guy. Later, Sister Hongzhu and another sister, Li Xiener, risked their lives to save me. They even got seriously injured. They said that I was a woman with spiritual energy, so I would be captured by the bad guys. Then, following that, Lin Ke recounted how she had been captured by the evil cultivators in the secular world, and how she had been rescued by Hongzhu. She had even been brought to see Consort Xie, and how they had returned to the inner martial world with her. However, after arriving at the Hong family because her strength was too low, the head of the Hong family judged that she was really not suitable to enter the venerable realm to train. Therefore she stayed in the Hong family with Jin Beibei and the others. She did not go out until 2 days ago. She also learned about the experience of Hongzhu and the others in the secret realm later. After listening to her, Tang Tang could not help but sympathize with Kerlin's tortuous experience. When she was about to comfort her, Xiao Chen's voice suddenly sounded, Kerlin, are you sure that Lu Shuangshuang was also captured by the evil practitioners? Do you know where she was taken? In the process of Lin Ke's narration, she also mentioned that Lu Shuangshuang had also been captured. Although the room was rather noisy, Xiao Chen's acute hearing was still able to clearly hear what everyone was saying. Lin Ke's narration was also heard by him without missing a single word. Chapter 1281. At this moment, Xiao Chen's brows were slightly furrowed and his expression became somewhat solemn. He felt that if what Lin Ke said was true, then he had to put aside the matter of the sacrifice and save Lu Shuangshuang first. I'm also not too sure it's all from Big Sister Hongzhu, she told me. Lin Ke was startled by Xiao Chen, and her voice trembled as she stammered. Every time she faced Xiao Chen, Kerlin would feel a little unnatural and inexplicably flustered. Even though she knew that Xiao Chen was not a bad guy, she could not control her nervousness. Even she could not figure out the reason. Hongzhu, come here. What is the background of the evil cultivator who captured Lu Shuangshuang? Xiao Chen immediately turned his head and shouted. Because Xiao Chen's voice was relatively loud, the surrounding women stopped chatting when they heard him. Their astonished gazes converged on Xiao Chen and Hongzhu. Little brother Xiao Chen, why are you so fierce to me? You scared this baby to death. Hongzhu did not notice anything wrong at first and teased with a smile. Only when he saw Xiao Chen's sharp and serious eyes did he realize the seriousness of the problem. He put away his smile and said seriously, as far as I know, Lu Shuangshuang was captured by the Ghost Cultivation sect. Ghost Cultivation sect. Xiao Chen gnashed his teeth and repeated. The Ghost Cultivation sect was a group of treacherous villains. They were not as civilized as the Immortal Cultivation sect. After Lu Shuangshuang was captured by them, she must have suffered a lot. If he had known that it was them, he would have beaten Mad Demon Shishan more ruthlessly. Putting away his anger, Xiao Chen continued to ask in a deep voice, then do you know what price we have to pay to open the Immortal Cultivation world? At that time, Song Weizong of the Immortal Cultivation sect had been evasive with his words in the meeting room, which had aroused Xiao Chen's suspicions. It just so happened that Hongzhu was from the Immortal Cultivation sect. If he could not get any information from them, he could ask Hongzhu here. I also don't know how the ceremony is conducted. Hongzhu's expression collapsed as he shook his head. Aren't you from the Hong family? How come you don't even know the process of the sacrifice? Xiao Chen's heart sank. Could it be that what Song Weizong said was true? Was the method of the sacrifice really kept in a secret place and no one knew about it? Little brother Xiao Chen, I really don't want to say that you are stupid, but the sacrificial ceremony is the core secret of our Immortal Cultivation sect. I am just a member of a clan outside the martial world, how could I possibly know about this? Hongzhu charmingly rolled her eyes at Xiao Chen as if saying, you are really stupid. Xiao Chen paced back and forth a few times. He couldn't think of a solution for the time being, so he could only put this matter aside for the time being and change the topic back to the Ghost Cultivation sect. Do you know how the Ghost Cultivation sect started the sacrificial ceremony? Are they the same as you guys? First, I want to correct your concept. The Ghost Cultivation sect cultivates some particularly cruel and bloody cultivation methods, which are still different from our Immortal Cultivation sect. You can't compare our two sects. Hongzhu wrinkled her nose in protest. Fine. I didn't mean that. I just wanted to ask if the Ghost Cultivation sect's sacrificial ceremony method is similar to yours? Xiaoqun helplessly shook his head and explained. Maybe. I don't know the specifics. After all, our two sects have been fighting for many years, so we are very familiar with each other's defensive intelligence. It's basically impossible to find out anything. Hongzhu spread out her hands and replied while blinking her large innocent eyes. You don't know this and you don't know that. I really admire you. Xiaoqun glared at Hongzhu, feeling both annoyed and amused at the same time. He had thought that he would be able to obtain more information from her, but in the end, this little girl actually didn't know anything at all. It was truly infuriating. Little brother Xiaoqun, don't be like this. Let me think about what else I can tell you. Hongzhu wrinkled her nose mischievously. After thinking for a while, she said, You seem to be very concerned about Lu Shuangshuang. According to my information, apart from Lu Shuangshuang, the Ghost Cultivation sect has also captured other women with spiritual qi in Tianfang province and the outer martial arts world. It's a pity that although our Immortal Cultivation sect despises their behavior, we can't do anything about it. How about it? Can I help you with this matter? What? The Ghost Cultivation sect even dares to capture people from the outer martial arts world? Xiaoqun's expression changed as he asked in surprise, Aren't they 2F** King Bold? Aren't they afraid of being punished by the martial arts world? At this time Xiaoqun already had a vague bad feeling. After seeing Qing Menjing and Jin Beibei, he suddenly remembered that Yi Xiaoya was still in the demonic star sect in the outer martial arts world. He hoped that she wouldn't be so unlucky as to be captured by the Ghost Cultivation sect together with Lu Shuangshuang. As for the Tianfang province, he didn't have any acquaintances. Except for Wang Fangtian of the Wang family, he didn't have any contact with other people. Also, the Ghost Cultivation sect probably didn't dare to make trouble in the Wang family, or they would definitely be killed by Wang Fangtian. But then again, what was the standard of this woman with spiritual qi? Yi Xiaoya was just an ordinary demonic cultivator who had nothing to do with spiritual qi at all. It was meaningless for the Ghost Cultivation sect to capture her. However, Xiaoqun thought that even Kerlin, an ordinary person, could be captured. It was very likely that Yi Xiaoya would also be captured. Humph, those from the Ghost Cultivation sect wouldn't worry about such trifles. Hongzhu's voice interrupted Xiaoqun's thoughts. She pursed her lips and muttered hatefully, With their cultivation, they'll definitely be able to successfully evade the pursuit of the cultivators from the outer world. Who knows, they might even be able to kill someone. So powerful? Xiaoqun scratched his chin and looked at Hongzhu, who was full of fear, and asked, What about your cultivation sect? Didn't you save Kerlin from them? That's because we happened to be there, and it took us a lot of effort to save her. Hongzhu didn't look complacent at all. Instead, she said indignantly, You should know that those from the Ghost Cultivation sect who can capture people are not ordinary people. When I was rescuing Kuer, I met that guy called Sunabayo. He's very powerful. Big sister, I was almost killed by him. Alright, don't be too angry. Seeing Hongzhu's angry expression, Xiaoqun had no choice but to comfort her. When the Ghost Cultivation sect sends Lu Shuangshuang and the others here and confirms that they are safe, I'll think of a way to teach a few evil cultivators a lesson. On one hand, it'll be to avenge Lu Shuangshuang, and on the other hand, it'll be to help you vent your anger. Hearing that the Ghost Cultivation sect was so evil, Xiaoqun also felt angry. However, he could only suppress it for the time being. After all, he still couldn't confirm the specific strength of the Ghost Cultivation sect. This was especially true for their sect leader, Shishan Junyo. According to Gong Sun Yin, he was extremely powerful and heaven-defying. Before he had a way to understand the real situation, Xiaoqun still had some misgivings. Chapter 1282. Oh my good little brother Xiaoqun, you really are big sister's sweet little cotton-padded jacket. The originally angry Hongzhu instantly changed into a beautiful smile as she sweetly said, Renjia doesn't know how to thank you. How about, this big sister suffers a little loss and dedicates my life to you. What do you think? Aside from her verbal teasing, Hongzhu also threw a few coquettish glances at Xiao Chen from time to time, the tips of her eyebrows and the corners of her eyes exuding an indescribable charm. Forget it, I can't bear it. Xiao Chen seemed to feel that all the women's eyes had suddenly focused on him and immediately shook his head like a rattledrum. Seeing that Xiao Chen was not interested in her teasing, Hongzhu felt a little disappointed in her heart. However, she still pouted and coquettishly said, "If you miss this opportunity, you won't get another one. If you don't seize it now, it might be too late in the future." Xiao Chen was also at his wits' end with Hongzhu, the little demoness. He smiled bitterly and shook his head. Soon after, he thought of something and asked, "That's right, little Hongzhu, there's something I don't quite understand. How can Kerlin be a so-called spiritual energy woman? She's not someone from the martial arts world. She's just an ordinary girl who hasn't cultivated before. Her parents are also commoners. You couldn't have made a mistake, right?" "Of course I wouldn't make a mistake." Hongzhu glanced at Kerlin and said with a matter-of-fact expression, "Big sister, I also know that she's an ordinary person. However, I can detect that there's spiritual energy in her body. Moreover, I can be sure that the spiritual energy in her body is indeed up to standard. Moreover, it's much more abundant than other people's. However, I also don't know how the spiritual energy in her body is produced." "That's strange," Xiao Chen muttered in confusion. He carefully looked at Kerlin again, but he didn't find anything different about her. She was no different from before. She was still a very timid and ordinary girl. Could it be that he, as a cultivator, couldn't see the existence of Reiki? Kerlin felt a little uncomfortable under Xiao Chen's gaze. For a moment she didn't know whether to stand or sit. She could only shyly lower her head slightly, not daring to look into Xiao Chen's eyes. Her face became redder and redder and she slowly moved backward. But soon she was pressed against the wall, and there was nowhere to retreat. Reporting to sect leader Xing. Young Master Song Qingshu and Miss Hong Yen of the Cultivation sect have come. They say that they have an important matter to discuss with sect leader. Xiao Chen was about to ask something else when a guard suddenly shouted from outside the door. Little Miss Xing, who was standing to the side, was slightly taken aback. She couldn't understand why Song Qingshu had come again. Furthermore, he had brought a girl with him this time. Could it be that he was unconvinced after being scolded by Xiao Chen just now? Unable to guess Song Qingshu's intentions, little Miss Xing turned her head and asked Xiao Chen with her eyes. Although he was a little impatient, he didn't object. Then she indifferently instructed, "Got it. Invite the two of them in." Seeing Hong Yen and Song Qingshu slowly enter the room one after another, Hongzhu and the other women looked at each other in bewilderment. Didn't these two not follow them just now? Why are they here now? Especially Song Qingshu. Previously he had strongly opposed Song Huawu coming to see Xiao Chen. Now he had also come. However, they had come to see sect leader Xing naturally. It wasn't appropriate for them to casually ask questions. They could only silently stand in place and observe the movements of these two people, secretly pondering their intentions. "Greetings, sect leader Xing. I am Hongzhu's younger sister, Hong Yen. I am also a descendant of the Cultivation sect's Hong family. This time I have come with elder sister Hongzhu to this precious land. Our main purpose is to participate in the Cultivation World's sacrificial ceremony." Hong Yen stood in the middle of the room and introduced herself to little Miss Xing. When she first walked in, Hong Yen was actually a little dumbfounded. She had originally thought that there would only be Hongzhu and a few other women present. As long as she found a stranger that she didn't know, it should be Xing Gongzi. Unexpectedly, as soon as she stepped into the room, she discovered that there were actually several great beauties in the room that she didn't know. For a moment, she was a little confused as to which one was the sect leader of Awakening Heaven sect. However, Hong Yen quickly recognized them. This was because little Miss Xing seemed to have seen through Hong Yan's hesitation. Afraid that Hong Yen would recognize the wrong person, she took 2 steps forward. Hong Yen immediately determined that little Miss Xing was the sect leader of Awakening Heaven sect. Because of this subtle action of little Miss Xing, Hong Yen had a much better impression of her. Song Qingshu, on the other hand, looked neither servile nor overbearing. She didn't bow and stood stiffly next to Hong Yen like a block of wood. Although she was expressionless, Song Qingshu still had a trace of doubt in her heart. Why are there a few more women in this room? Moreover, all of them are outstanding beauties, charming. Each of them has their own unique characteristics. Could they all be related to Xiao Chen? "Hello Hong Yen, I recently took office and was busy dealing with the handover of the Awakening Heaven sect. I couldn't split myself, so I couldn't personally entertain your people. Please forgive me. Little Miss Xing saw that Hong Yen recognized her, so she politely nodded her head and casually said a few words. Hee, it's all right. As the new sect leader of Awakening Heaven sect, you must have many complicated matters to attend to. The Immortal sect naturally understands. Hong Yen smiled slightly and replied very politely. After the two finished their courteous greetings, the room suddenly fell into a strange silence. Everyone was waiting for Song Qingshu, who was beside Hong Yen, to speak. In the end, he still had a straight face. His eyes wandered and he didn't say a word. No one knew what he was thinking. Hong Yen waited for a while and gave Song Qingshu a meaningful glance. In the end, he still didn't move. She could only helplessly take the initiative to point at him and say to little Miss Xing, I heard that Song Qingshu offended your subordinates. After he returned, he felt very apologetic and wanted to specially come to apologize to Xiao Qin. I also wanted to pay a visit to sect leader Xing, so I came with him. I say, Song Qingshu, you clearly offended Xiao Qin, yet you still have the face to ask Hong Yen to accompany you to apologize. You're here yet you don't say anything. You're really making your Song clan proud. After listening to Hong Yan's explanation, Hong Zhu couldn't help but start mocking and ridiculing. Hong Zhu had always despised Song Qingshu's arrogant personality. She didn't know what he was being arrogant about, especially since this guy had inexplicably offended Xiao Qin. He wanted someone to apologize on his behalf, so she was even more displeased with him. Hong Zhu, we are all disciples of the Immortal sect. Is there a need to make sarcastic remarks about me in front of everyone? Song Qingshu frowned and said with some displeasure. Song Qingshu really didn't expect that Hong Zhu would publicly refute him in front of so many people. His expression immediately became very unsightly. Chapter 1283. TSK. I think Sister Hong Zhu's words are too light. You're a dignified man, but you came here empty-handed. You didn't even bring any gifts. Most importantly, you asked another woman to come with you and stand up for you. Don't you feel ashamed? Jean Bebe rolled her eyes and said disdainfully, You're right. You're right. That's right. Since the immortal cultivators are so rich, why don't you hold a banquet of 100 tables as an apology? Maybe Sister Suru will enjoy it and put in a good word for you in front of our husband, Xiao Qin, so that you won't put on such a poker face and piss off Xiao Qin's husband, who will beat you up again. Tian Suru echoed. Hearing Tian Suru's words, Jean Bebe looked at her in satisfaction. She even raised her eyebrows and secretly raised her thumb as if to say, You city people are really good at having fun. You are too much. Song Qingshu had never suffered such mockery before. He was so angry that his face was purple and his body was trembling. However, he could not attack Jean Bebe and Tian Suru, nor could he argue with them. He could only hold back his anger. First of all, Song Qingshu never hit women. Second of all, his biological sister, Song Huawu, was also here. He had to be a gentleman. Even if he attacked them, Hong Zhu would certainly not stand by and do nothing. Then he would be the one who suffered losses. Song, are you done yet? Jean Bebe is my sister-in-law and Tian Shosho is my wife. So what if they've gone overboard with you? Xiao Qin waved his hand impatiently. He glared at Song Qingshu and said, Are you here to apologize or not? If you are, finish what you have to say and leave. Don't disturb their reunion. Xiao Qin really despised Song Qingshu's behavior. The guy was simply an idiot. He thought that he was powerful and had a high status, and he was so arrogant that he did not know where he got his pride from. In fact, he was nothing but a pretentious prick. Xiao Qin. Don't think that you can be so arrogant and condescending just because you have Open Heaven sect as your support. Our cultivation sects are not necessarily afraid of you. Song Qingshu was so angry that she didn't have time to apologize and immediately retorted. Xiao Qin couldn't be bothered with him anymore. Song Qingshu's vocabulary was really poor. He kept repeating the same words over and over again. Xiao Qin was tired of listening to him. Perhaps Song Qingshu still felt angry, so she turned to Song Huawu and advised, Sister, you've seen Xiao Qin's true colors. I advise you to stop following this guy. He's such a playboy and he'll hurt you sooner or later. How many times have I told you, I'm not your sister? Song Huawu's face darkened. She said coldly, I have nothing to do with the Song family of your immortal cultivation sect. Please think carefully before you speak in the future. Song Huawu did not have a good impression of Song Qingshu to begin with, and she was even more disgusted with the Song family, who had separated her parents. She did not expect that this fellow would be so ungrateful as to keep instigating the relationship between her and Xiao Chen. Song Huawu could not stand it anymore. Huawu, don't be so childish. Why don't we go back and talk about it? I'm worried about you staying in this place. If those people from the Ghost Cultivation sect come looking for trouble with Xiao Chen, he definitely won't be able to protect you. At that time, if you get implicated, how am I going to explain it to your father? Song Qingshu continued to earnestly persuade her. You don't have to worry about that. Since Huawu is my wife, I naturally have the ability to protect her. Xiao Chen was speechless at Song Qingshu, who was acting like a monk. He directly asked him to leave and said, "There's no need to trouble you with other things. Since you don't plan to apologize, then goodbye." As soon as he finished speaking, Xiao Chen took a step forward. He first released a trace of mental power to the door of the room, then raised his hand and waved at Song Qingshu. *CK. You actually dare to attack me? Song Qingshu couldn't help but be shocked when he saw Xiao Chen's posture. However, before he could finish speaking, he saw that Xiao Chen had already pushed his palm at him through the air. Song Qingshu subconsciously wanted to defend, but before he could circulate his mental cultivation method, the door behind him suddenly opened by itself. Then his entire body was pushed back by a strong force. Song Qingshu was caught off guard and directly flew out of the door. However, he didn't fall to the ground. Instead, he landed very smoothly on the ground. Before he could react, the door in front of him closed again with a bang. Seeing this scene, how could Song Qingshu not know that it was Xiao Chen's doing? He immediately flew into a rage out of humiliation and shouted at the closed door, "Xiao Chen, you're too arrogant. It's fine if you only offend me now, but if you offend the Ghost Cultivation sect because of your bad temper, then you'll suffer. I tried to persuade you with kind words, but you didn't listen. Then you'd better behave yourself." With that, Song Qingshu snorted coldly. She tossed aside the matter of apologizing that she had thought of before coming. She turned around and left with a flick of her sleeves. She quickly left Xing's courtyard and returned to her room. Xiao Chen, who was in the room, heard Song Qingshu's words and shrugged his shoulders indifferently. Although he did have some misgivings about the Ghost Cultivation sect, if they really fought, the Ghost Cultivation sect might not be able to take advantage of him. Besides, apart from Shishan Giant Bull that he needed to be careful about, the rest of the people from the Ghost Cultivation sect should just be small fries. They were nothing to be afraid of. When the time came, he only needed to act according to the circumstances. Cousin-in-law, is that Song something love letter an idiot? He said that he would come to apologize, but he was so arrogant as if someone owed him 8 million yuan. How ridiculous. Jean Bebe curled her lips at the door and snorted. Yes, Sister Sour Sour also thinks that he is not a good person. He doesn't even want to prepare a banquet, and he still wants to apologize? Sister Sour Sour doesn't even have a chance to have a feast. Tian Sour Sour also nodded in agreement and added angrily, "Husband Xiao Chen, you should have beaten him up just now and let him know what's good for him. At least, you should have beaten him until he is willing to treat you to a meal." Forget it. He doesn't mean any harm. He just likes to pretend to be aloof. Xiao Chen waved his hand and did not take Song Qingshu's angry words to heart. Just now, Xiao Chen had used a trick to send Song Qingshu out of the door unscathed. This was because he had no intention of beating this guy up. Although Song Huawu refused to admit it, in terms of bloodline, this guy was still her older brother, which made him his brother-in-law. He could not go overboard with some things. Chapter 1284. There's no need for you to worry so much. Sensing the heavy atmosphere in the room, Hongzhu could not help but burst into laughter. He waved his hand and casually said, "I'm very familiar with Song Qingshu. He's just a tight-lipped person. In reality, he won't do anything out of line. If he really dares to do anything to little brother Xiao Chen, Hua Wu and I will be the first to not let him off." Cheng Menjing couldn't help but feel a headache when she looked at the two girls who were unwilling to admit defeat. Originally, it was already hard enough for her to deal with Tian Suru. She didn't expect that the little she-devil Jean Bebe would join in the fun as well. Their individual lethality was already great enough. If they joined forces, it would be sufficient to infuriate someone to death. "Suru, I don't mean to scold you, but why do you only know how to eat?" Cheng Minjing could not help but scold him. Then she glared at Jean Bebe. "Also, Bebe, you are really something. Why are you making such a fuss?" On one hand, Hong Yan did not want to go back alone to face Song Qingshu, who was still angry. On the other hand, she felt that neither Hong Zhu nor Xie Fei seemed to be in a relationship with Xiao Chen yet. The place was mostly occupied by Xiao Chen's women. It was indeed inappropriate for them to stay here. As the saying goes, 3 women are enough for a drama. If we do it together, we will be able to kill Song Qingshu with our words alone. Xie Fei also covered her mouth and chuckled. Then she stretched her arms and winked at Xiao Chen. Our brother Xiao Chen is truly lucky to have so many wives to back him up. Lin Kuo was still standing in the corner of the wall. She did not speak, nor did she express her opinion. However, in her heart, she similarly did not approve of Xiao Chen's actions. She felt that he was sometimes too tyrannical. He could casually kill others just like a devil. It was too terrifying. How horrifying. At this moment, Hong Yan was still standing in the middle of the hall by herself. She looked at Qing Menjing and the other girls in shock, her heart greatly shaken. After taking a few steps, Hong Yan suddenly stopped. After hesitating for a moment, she turned around and weakly asked, Sister Xie Fei, do you want to go back with me? I don't think it's appropriate for you to stay here. Brother, I also think what Sister Menjing said makes sense. Song Qingshu seems to be very arrogant. After being hit by you, she definitely won't let it go. Xiao Xiao pulled Xiao Chen's hand, her expression also a little serious. Since Sister Xing is now the sect leader of the Awakening Heaven sect, then let her help us out. It should be very easy to resolve this matter. Jean Beibei pouted her lips and protested, Beibei is fighting for my cousin-in-law. I'm not making a fuss. Tian Suruan also nodded. Linger and Ling Chenxue, who were standing at the side, naturally expressed their agreement. Although they knew that Xiao Chen's cultivation was very high, no matter how high it was, he was still just one person. The Immortal Cultivation sect was an entire sect, a colossal existence. He might not be able to fight against them, not to mention that there was still the Ghost Cultivation sect eyeing him covetously from the side. Most importantly, not only were all the girls in the hall beautiful, but they also had their own characteristics. Some were charming, some were shy, some were lively, and some were steady. Most importantly, they got along very well. What the hell was going on? Were they all poisoned by Xiao Chen? Don't be silly. Since you are Xiao Chen's woman, what's the difference between your business and mine? Why are you so clear about it? Xiao Chen did not mind that other people were present. He took Song Huawu into his arms and comforted her softly. An hour ago, Xiao Chen was not clear about the relationship between Song Huawu and the Song family of the Immortal Cultivation sect. However, after Song Huawu and the other girls' narration and explanation, he more or less understood it. Therefore he showed mercy to Song Qingshu. Xie Fei was originally much more mature than the girls in the room. She stretched her body, revealing the seductive charm of a mature and domineering woman. Her perfect curves immediately attracted the gazes of many people, making their hearts sway. Many girls unconsciously revealed envious gazes. Okay, I understand. Hong Yan was slightly stunned. She nodded subconsciously and agreed. Then she turned around and was about to leave. When Xiao Xiao first entered the martial arts world to look for Xiao Chen, she had stayed with the Hong family for a period of time. Therefore, she had a good understanding of the strength of the Immortal Cultivation sect. Therefore, she did not want Xiao Chen to get into any trouble because of this. You don't need to worry about my affairs. Hong Zhu frowned. His tone was not very kind. If you want to leave, then leave. Don't dawdle. I still have a lot to talk about with my little brother Xiao Chen. Hong Zhu was really speechless at his sister. He thought, this little girl is too bad at talking. What do you mean by it has nothing to do with me? Can't you see that I am also a little interested in Xiao Chen? If I don't seize this opportunity to communicate with him, I won't even get a share of the soup. Hong Yan was really too surprised. Originally, she thought that Xiao Chen only had a few girlfriends from the Hong family. She thought that he must have spent a lot of effort to deceive them. She did not expect that he would actually have so many more girls in his pocket. It was simply too inconceivable. Hong Yan felt that she could not see through this fellow Xiao Chen anymore. If he really was a lecher, a pervert, and a hooligan, how could there be so many women who were dead set on him? Qing Minjing shook her head. She was too lazy to educate those two who did not listen. Instead, she turned her head and said to Xiao Chen with a trace of worry, Xiao Chen, your actions just now were a little too unfriendly. Why don't you let Xing Gongzi communicate with the people of the Immortal Cultivation sect? If the relationship becomes too rigid, it will not be good if there is a dispute between the two sides in the future. Xiaochen, I am really sorry. Originally, this matter should have been settled by me. In the end, I did not expect that you would still be involved. Song Huawu was hiding something in her heart, so she did not notice Xie Fei's actions. Instead, she bit her lower lip and apologized guiltily. Hee, Sister Hong Yan, I think you shouldn't leave. Why don't you stay and accompany us? Xie Fei directly went forward and hugged Hong Yan's small waist. She smiled with a pair of charming willow-shaped eyes and said, Actually, Xiaochen is also very good to you. Didn't he help you break through to the venerable realm before? Anyway, you have seen what you should see. Everyone is even. No one suffered a loss, right? Before Hong Yan could think further, Xiaochen comforted Song Huawu's emotions. He turned his head and lightly said to her, Hong Yan, there is nothing else for you to do here. You can go back first. But I have to trouble you with one thing. Please help me tell Song Qingshu that this time, I will not be calculative with him for Huawu's sake. I hope he knows what is good for him and will not do anything stupid again. Chapter 1285. This. Xie Fei's words made Hong Yan involuntarily recall the scene of her and Xiao Chen's dual cultivation in the Venerable's secret realm. Her cheeks instantly flushed red, and she hastily broke free from Xie Fei's demonic clutches. She hastily retreated while waving her hands saying, No need, I'll leave first. You don't stay too late. After stammering, Hong Yan immediately turned around, pushed open the door, and ran out as if she was fleeing for her life. When the Awakening Heaven sect disciples and guards saw Hong Yan running out of little girl Xing's room in a panic with a flushed face, they didn't know what was going on as they watched her madly run away. In their hearts, they were a little apprehensive, thinking that Hong Yan had been criticized by sect head Xing or had suffered some grievances. Senior sister Xiao Fei, don't tease her anymore. She's too thin-skinned. How can she stand listening to such matters between men and women? Hong Zhu shook his head slightly as he watched Hong Yan's fleeing figure. He sighed in a low voice. They were both children of the Hong family and twin sisters at that. How could there be such a big difference between them? Sigh, how boring. I thought I could have some fun. Xie Fei spread her hands helplessly and wrinkled her nose playfully. She looked particularly charming. That's right. Even little sister Kerr has the courage to stand here. This little girl is too timid. Tang Tang smiled and rubbed Kerlin's head as she teased. I didn't. Kerlin immediately blushed. She wanted to explain but didn't know what to say. When she saw everyone's eyes focused on her, she became even more flustered and sweated. All right, stop teasing our little sister. Xie Fei helped Kerlin to smooth things over. She had just remembered something important, so she put away her smile and said to Xiao Chen, By the way, little brother Xiao Chen, I forgot to mention that Song Qingshu didn't come looking for you just to apologize. I'm guessing he has other plans. He just ran away because he was angered by you, so he didn't have the time to say it. Xie Fei didn't say the last half of the sentence out loud. Looks like this brat really doesn't learn from his mistakes. Could it be that he still wants to use the open heaven gate to do whatever he wants? Xiao Chen raised his eyebrows. He did not show any panic and instead asked with interest. If Song Qingshu really intended to harm Qi Tianmen, then Xiao Chen naturally would not sit idly by. Even if he did not cripple this kid, he would let him taste some pain. Did he really think that he could be lawless just because he was his brother-in-law? Actually, he's not targeting open heaven gate. He's just interested in you. Hong Zhu sized up Xiao Chen and said with a mischievous smile. Holy sh*t. He couldn't have fallen for me, right? Hurry up and tell him that I'm straight, and I'm determined not to date him. Xiao Chen felt very uncomfortable under Hong Zhu's stare. He hurriedly covered his vital parts and put on a righteous expression. Haha, what nonsense are you thinking? Hong Zhu suddenly laughed so hard that he couldn't catch his breath. After a while, he calmed down and explained while suppressing his laughter. He really has taken a fancy to you, but unfortunately, it's not your jade body that he's interested in, but your ability to easily help cultivators break through to the venerable realm. Oh, so that's how it is. Really, you scared this baby to death. Xiao Chen patted his chest, causing the group of girls to convulse with laughter. Xiao Chen didn't laugh. Instead, he scratched his chin and asked, What does he want to do with this ability? Does he want me to help your cultivation sect as a labor force? Oh, little brother Xiao Chen is really smart. Hong Zhu snapped his fingers, looked at Xiao Chen with a grin and said, He wants to use this point to make you work for the cultivation sects. Xiao Chen twitched his lips and said slowly, shaking his head, "Then you go and tell him to give up the idea as soon as possible. If the cultivation sects can afford my appearance fee, I can occasionally make a guest appearance and help them out in passing. As for making young Master Xiao lose his freedom for the sake of their long-term meal ticket, that's absolutely impossible." When Cheng Minjing and Xin Jingxian heard Xiao Chen's words, they looked at each other tacitly and put on a smile. Jean Bebe was laughing so hard that her eyebrows could not even be seen. She was wearing an expression that said, "I knew that my cousin-in-law would say that." They both recalled the story of when Xiao Chen played tricks on Qin Jinping and Qiao Yuliang in Songning City. At that time he pretended to be weak and asked for a sky-high appearance fee. Not only did he take their appearance fee, he even played a trick on them. At that time, they thought that Xiao Chen was willing to sacrifice his life for money. Hong Zhu rolled his eyes at Xiao Chen helplessly and said grumpily, "You want to be his long-term meal ticket? After what happened just now, I bet he can't wait to beat you up. How could he come to you for a breakthrough?" Knock knock knock. Before Xiao Chen could say anything, a light knock came from the door again. The people who were whispering to each other quietened down. Xiao Chen was still wondering why there were so many people looking for Miss Xing today when a familiar voice came from outside the door. "Leader Xing, is it convenient for you now? I have a very important matter that I need to report to you." Elder Sun carefully shouted from outside the door. "Sure, come in." Miss Xing replied. She felt a little confused. Why did Elder Sun come here? The following worship ceremony in the cultivation world didn't have much to do with him. What important matter could he have? Reporting. Elder Sun walked in with large strides. He only said one word before he went silent. It was as if he was a duck that had been grabbed by the neck. Elder Sun was already stunned by the lineup of different beauties in the room. Apart from Xiao Chen, all the other beauties were sitting, standing, or leaning against the wall. He felt that his eyes weren't enough to take in all of them. After sweeping his eyes over all the women, he still felt a little unsatisfied. One had to know that he had lived for more than half his life and had seen many strange people and strange things. However, he had never seen so many beautiful girls. Even though Elder Sun wasn't a particularly lecherous person at this moment, he felt a kind of ecstasy. He didn't think that he would be able to feast his eyes today at such an old age. He truly felt that his life was worth it. "Surname Sun, have you seen enough? What are you here for? Do you have something to say or not? If you have something to say, then hurry up and say it. If not, then scram." Seeing Elder Sun's lecherous look and not saying anything for a long time, Xiao Chen's face couldn't help but sink as he scolded. Chapter 1286. Xiao Chen purposely added a trace of Yuan Qi into his voice. The bystanders didn't feel anything strange, but when it reached Elder Sun's ears, it was like a huge bell ringing, shaking his soul. Cough cough. Elder Sun woke up from his stupor and hurriedly pretended to cough a few times. Then he put on a serious expression and weakly said, "That? Hero Xiao, I do have something I need to discuss with sect leader Xing, but I wonder if I can speak with sect leader Xing alone?" "Oh, of course, not a problem." Xiao Chen calmly nodded his head, then walked over and patted Elder Sun's shoulder. He said in a neutral tone, "How about this? I'll twist off your head right now, then throw your body out to feed the dogs. Since your head is left, you can talk to sect leader Xing however you want. What do you think?" "Bleh. So disgusting." Little girl Xing glared at Xiao Chen and spat in dissatisfaction. Cheng Minjing and the other girls couldn't help but reveal looks of disgust. Xiao Chen really didn't know how to control his mouth. How could he dare to say anything? There were so many girls here, didn't he know how to consider the feelings of others? Actually, all the girls knew that Xiao Chen was doing this for little girl Xing's own good. He didn't want Elder Sun to do anything unfavorable to little girl Xing when they were alone. However, the way he spoke was questionable. Don't. Hero Xiao, please be lenient. I indeed have something important to discuss with sect leader Xing." The scene that Xiao Chen described was too shocking. Elder Sun was so scared that he almost cried and hurriedly begged. "What is it? Say it now. There are no outsiders here, there's nothing we can't let them know." Little girl Xing was afraid that Xiao Chen would say something more disgusting and hurriedly interjected. Elder Sun's face was sullen as he explained word by word. "Back then, sect leader Qi Tian, the previous sect leader, was afraid that there would be traitors in our sect, so he specially adopted a measure. He ordered people to secretly install tracking devices on the upper echelons and disciples who were carrying out missions." "What did you say?" Xiao Chen's body shook as he blurted out. He was just joking before, but now he really had the urge to twist Elder Sun's head and kick it like a ball. Among them, Sect Master Xing is also one of the targets. Elder Sun could naturally feel Xiao Chen's killing intent. He braced himself and continued, So I came here this time to report this matter, and ask Sect Master Xing to quickly think of a way to remove the tracking device. Otherwise it is very possible that your life will be in danger. Ever since little Chick Xing had officially become the sect master, Elder Sun had been considering whether he should reveal this matter or not. He also knew that now that Sidu Qitian was no longer around, if he revealed this matter, he would definitely bear the brunt of Xiao Chen's wrath. Elder Sun was afraid that Xiao Chen, who was unable to restrain his anger, would kill him if he told the truth. However, if he did not tell the truth, Xiao Chen might find out sooner or later. Even if he didn't find out, if something really happened to sect leader Xing, he wouldn't just have to bear the brunt of Xiao Chen's anger. After a few sleepless nights and hesitating for a long time, Elder Sun finally made up his mind to tell the truth and report this matter to sect leader Xing. After all, paper could not hold fire. As the sect leader of Qitian sect, Xing Gongzi would find out about this sooner or later. He might as well tell the truth. Even if he didn't end up well, he could at least avoid any big trouble in the future. It can't be? There's a tracking device on my body? How is that possible? I've never found it before. Little girl Xing was completely confused and asked in astonishment. Because she often had to dress up as a man, little girl Xing was afraid that she would make a mistake and expose herself in front of others. Thus, she would usually check her clothes very carefully, not letting go of even the smallest details. However, she had never found anything out of the ordinary. But when she heard Elder Sun's words, little girl Xing still subconsciously checked every button on her clothes. Then she touched her hair. She had seen in the movies that listening devices and tracking devices were usually hidden in places like this. But after searching all around, little girl Xing still couldn't find anything. Her suspicion grew even stronger. This sect leader Xing, the tracking device was actually installed in your body. That's why you couldn't find it. Elder Sun wiped the non-existent sweat off his forehead and explained with difficulty. You said there's a tracking device? Then where is the terminal of the signal? Who is controlling it right now? Hong Zhu's expression also changed as he asked a series of questions. The Hong Ying group under Hong Zhu's command had many means, so she also vaguely knew about the existence of this kind of tracking device. Moreover, the tracking device might also carry some other, dangerous, things that could control or even harm the person being tracked. She couldn't help but worry for little girl Xing. Elder Sun trembled as he took out his cell phone from his bosom and carefully opened a certain software. He pointed at the screen and explained, this software is used to control the tracking device. Aside from being able to pinpoint the location of the person being implanted, it can also control the thoughts of the person being implanted. If that person doesn't obey orders, it can also. Elder Sun said can also for a long time, but in the end he didn't dare to continue speaking. However, Xiao Chen could see some clues from the panic and fear in Elder Sun's eyes. Coupled with Hong Zhu's nervous attitude just now, he could roughly guess what was going on. From this, it could be seen that Sidu Qitian's intentions were extremely sinister. Most likely, in order to prevent the upper echelons from rebelling, he had installed some other terrifying mechanism in the tracking device that could directly kill the person who rebelled, or even make them wish they were dead. Give me your cell phone now, immediately. Xiao Chen could no longer suppress his anger and fiercely roared at Elder Sunday. Although Xiao Chen was a profound ascension stage cultivator who had already entered the realm of returning to one's true self, he could no longer suppress the suffocating pressure that he released in his rage. The killing intent was even more ferocious and terrifying than the one he had released just now, and it completely enveloped Elder Sunday. Elder Sun felt as if he was being stared at by a ferocious beast from ancient times. All the words he wanted to say were stuck in his throat, and he couldn't say anything. His legs were shaking incessantly as if they were a pendulum. He didn't dare to think too much and hurriedly handed over the cell phone with trembling hands. He was afraid that if he was even a beat slower, he would be killed by Xiao Chen with a single slap. Xiao Chen took the cell phone and looked at the software that controlled the tracking device. With a slight squeeze of his palm, the cell phone was directly crushed into pieces. Then he fiercely threw it to the ground and smashed it to pieces. Chapter 1287. Looking at the phone powder that had already been smashed into pieces on the ground, elder son said anxiously, Xiao. Hero Xiao, it's useless to just destroy the phone. As long as you can download that software through a special channel, any smartphone can control the tracker that has been implanted in it. Previously, when Xing Chick went to the Jia clan to spy on Xiao Chen, elder son had noticed that she was behaving abnormally during surveillance. He was quite suspicious of her and wanted to use the tracker to summon her back. However, he hesitated and resisted the urge. Damn it. To think that I respected Sidu Chitian so much in the past. He's too much. He's actually so vicious to do such a despicable thing to his own disciples. Xing Chick slammed the armrest of her chair and couldn't suppress the anger in her heart. She fiercely cursed. Elder son didn't dare to raise his head and prayed in his heart to curse Sidu Chitian to his heart's content. As long as he didn't implicate his anger onto himself. However, Xiaochen didn't let him off and continued to interrogate, where is the tracker installed? Also, who else in Awakening Heaven sect has been implanted with this damn thing? Reporting to Hero Xiao, the tracker is installed in the skin behind sect leader Xing's right ear. Almost all of the higher-ups in Awakening Heaven sect have been implanted with this thing. Elder Sun felt that Xiao Chen's pressure had finally weakened a little and hurriedly replied with lingering fear. Hearing this, Xiao Chen frowned and immediately extended his hand to carefully examine the back of Xing Chick's right ear. He discovered that there was indeed a small wound. Furthermore, when he pressed lightly with his hand, he could feel that there was indeed a hard object inside. How is it? Can you touch it? Are there any scars? Xing Chick was currently feeling uneasy and didn't pay attention to Xiao Chen's actions towards her. Instead, she asked a series of questions. When the other girls heard Xing Chick's question, they couldn't help but feel angry and amused. Shouldn't they be worried about the tracker? Why were they worried about scars instead? Xiao Chen didn't answer Xing Chick's question. Instead, he said indifferently, Xing Chick, I'm going to help you remove the tracker now. Bear with it for a while and it'll be over very quickly. Don't mess around. How about we get Elder Sun to find a professional to do it? What if there's a scar? Xing Chick was instantly shocked. Although she knew that Xiao Chen was doing this for her, wasn't this a little too rash? He didn't seem to have done this before. It's okay. Just relax. Trust me. I'll be fine soon. Xiao Chen carefully examined the wound behind little Miss Xing's ear. His comforting words contained a trace of mental energy, quickly calming little Miss Xing's emotions. Xing chilled shyly. After Xing finished, Xing chilled shyly. Leader Xing Starchin said Xing Chen's chin and Xing chin, Xing chia, Xing a Xing, chin, Xing yu, Xing yang, Chen Xing chin, and seeing that the AI chip had been extracted in perfect condition, and that nothing had happened to Sect Master Xing, Elder Sun finally heaved a sigh of relief. He felt as if he had taken a trip to the gates of hell, and had finally seen the light of dawn. Xiao Chen, have you removed the tracking device? Xing didn't even have time to react when Xiao Chen stopped. She only felt a slight pain and then Xiao Chen was done. Xing felt a slight itch on the back of her right ear, as if she had been bitten by a mosquito. She subconsciously reached out to touch it, but she didn't feel any scars. It was a very strange feeling. She didn't expect Xiao Chen to be a surgeon. And it's done. Take a look, it's this broken thing. Xiao Chen cleaned off the blood on the tracking device and stuffed it into Xing's hands. Xing held the tracking device in her hands and looked at it carefully. She discovered that it was just an ordinary-looking chip. It didn't attract any attention at all. The key was that she didn't even know when she had been implanted with this thing. Xiao Chen put the fruit knife away and turned to look at Elder Sunday. With a cold face he asked, apart from this tracking device, did Sidu Chitian do anything else? If there is, hurry up and tell me. Otherwise, if I find out about it, you won't have a good life. No, there really isn't anything else. Elder Sun shook his head with a bitter expression on his face. He now had a kind of fear towards Xiao Chen from the bottom of his heart. It should be known that even his most revered master, Gong Sun Yin, wasn't a match for Xiao Chen. How would he dare to hide any secrets? All right. Then I'll believe you this once. Since you're willing to confess today, I won't pursue your crime. Xiao Chen waved his hand and said indifferently, there's nothing for you to do here. Get out. Xiao Chen's sixth senses was clear. He could naturally see that Elder Sun was speaking the truth. Since Xing was fine now, he couldn't be bothered to pursue this fellow's responsibility. After all of this was instigated by Situ Chitian. Elder Sun was at most an errand boy in this matter. If he wanted to settle the score, he had to find that fellow first. Thank you, Hero Xiao. Then I'll take my leave first. Elder Sun's heart relaxed, but he didn't dare to show it on his face. He still bowed respectfully, took 2 steps back, turned around and couldn't wait to escape from the room. Elder Sun's awkward posture made it seem as if he wished he had another leg to run as fast as he could. In his panic, he almost bumped into the patrolling guards. Xing Niu didn't pay attention to the fleeing Elder Sunday. Instead, she lowered her head and casually crushed the tracking device in her hand. Xiaoqin, do you want Elder Sun to remove the tracking devices from the others? Xing Niu suddenly thought of something and asked with a face full of worry. In the past, I couldn't control how Sidu Qiqin treated them. But now that I'm the sect master of Awakening Heaven sect and understand the ins and outs of this secret, I can't just remove the tracking device and ignore the others, right? Oh. Xiaoqin thought for a moment and waved his hand. Let's keep it for now. This thing has its pros and cons. Since it's in your hands now, you can use it. In the future, if someone dares to resist your authority, at least you'll have a way to deal with them. Of course, if there isn't, it's best if you don't touch it. Chapter 1288. Xiaoqin reckoned that he would be entering the world of cultivation soon. Then, the internal martial arts world would be beyond his reach. If Xing was the only one in charge of Awakening Heaven sect, a lot of problems might arise in a short period of time. Now, with the help of the tracker, at least some of her problems could be solved. Then, he wouldn't have to worry about the internal martial arts world when he was in the world of cultivation. Xing hesitated for a while and finally nodded. Although she couldn't bear to do it, she knew that what Xiaoqin said was reasonable. After all, she had only been the sect leader for a few days. Although some people were respectful to her on the surface, she didn't know what they were thinking in secret. Yes, if anyone is disobedient, Sister Xing, you can use the tracker to control them and make them dance in front of everyone. Jean Beibei was halfway through her sentence when she saw Cheng Minjing staring at her with a dangerous expression. She hurriedly changed her words. Dance? Dance with many beer bottles on a tray. Haha, we can also put some snacks, desserts, fruits and so on. In this way we can eat and watch them dance. Tian Souring nodded continuously and started to fantasize happily. All the girls couldn't help but look at these 2 clowns. Cheng Minjing sighed helplessly. When she was about to say something, Xiaoqin smiled and said, I say, you 2 should be the left and right guardians of Xing. One of you will be responsible for playing tricks on people, and the other will be responsible for eating. No way, no way. Xing looked frightened and shook her head continuously. Everyone's astonished gazes immediately focused on little Chick Xing. Although Xiaoqin was joking, little Chick Xing's reaction was too much. Jean Beibei and Tian Souring were so mischievous. What was wrong with being the left and right protectors? Little Miss Xing's face collapsed. She stammered, the inner Wulian can't be compared to the secular world. There's nothing good to eat here. Later on, with Miss Beibei adding fuel to the fire, Qi Tian sect will be eaten by them sooner or later. All the girls looked at each other and then at Jean Beibei and Tian Souring, who were wearing innocent and wronged expressions. In the end, Xie Fei could not help but burst into laughter. Her laughter seemed to be contagious and made everybody else laugh. For a moment, the room was filled with laughter. In the following period of time, Xiaoqin had nothing to do other than waiting for the people of the Ghost Cultivation sect to come to him. It was rare that he had a few days of free time. In these few days, on one hand, Xiaoqin helped little Lady Xing sort out the affairs of the sect, helping her solidify her position as the sect leader. On the other hand, he spent the rest of his time chatting with the ladies, or locked himself in his room to cultivate. Not only did he beat up his people, but he also wanted to get the method of the sacrifice from the Ghost Cultivation sect and then divide the quota to go to the world of cultivators. After listening to this, West Mountain Giant Bull almost laughed. This Xing Gongzi was really shameless. Did he really think that he was just a decoration? Originally, West Mountain Giant Bull had designed a dirty trick. He wanted to wait for the sacrifice to sneak attack Qi Tian sect and the Cultivator sect and catch them all in one fell swoop. However, he later considered the unpredictable nature of the sacrifice. If something went wrong in the middle, he might even lose his life and be unable to enter the world of cultivators. Therefore, this method was not perfect enough. As the saying goes, in the face of absolute strength, all conspiracies and tricks were futile. West Mountain Giant Bull simply gave up on the idea of playing dirty tricks to deal with Qi Tian sect, who did not know what was good for them. He planned to go directly to them and let them know the power of the Ghost Cultivation sect. Thinking of this, West Mountain Giant Bull could not care about resting. With a wave of his hand, he directly led West Mountain Mad Devil and his group of subordinates to settle the score with Xing Gongzi and Ajian. West Mountain Giant Bull and his group aggressively rushed to Xing Gongzi's room. However, before they could show their strength, they were first stopped by the guards who strictly questioned them. "Stop. Who are you people?" The guard captain standing at the front stared at the group of people in front of him with a face of vigilance. The guy in the lead had triangular eyes and a hooked nose. His eyes were sharp and his expression was gloomy. One look and you could tell that he was not a good person. The guard captain could not help but mutter in his heart, "There are really a lot of people looking for sect leader Xing these past few days." The people who came before were all great beauties who were quite pleasing to the eye. In the end, a group of ugly and fierce men actually came today. What kind of business is sect leader Xing doing? Chapter 1289. The leader of the Ghost Cultivation sect, Shishan Giant Bull, is here. What's wrong with the people of Qitian sect? There are no rules at all. Hurry up and ask your leader to come out and greet us. With the support of Shishan Giant Bull, Mad Demon of Shishan was full of confidence. In his opinion, Shishan Giant Bull was already the most powerful existence in the martial arts world. No matter how powerful Ajian was, it was impossible for him to be his leader's opponent. Today, the leader was here to help him vent his anger. Hearing Mad Demon of Shishan insulting their leader, the guards were immediately angry. The guard captain stepped forward and shouted, "You don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. How dare you disrespect leader Xing?" Guards. The guard captain was about to order his men to arrest Ajian when he suddenly saw an overwhelming black fog coming towards him. The black fog contained a strong aura of death. Without waiting for the guard captain to react, another invisible aura suddenly came out from little Miss Xing's room and met the black mist head-on. The collision of the two auras produced a strong shockwave that pushed him to the side. Shishan Giant Bull was slightly stunned when he saw this. Obviously he was a little surprised that his black fog was blocked. However, his expression quickly returned to normal. He still had a gloomy face as he stared at Xing's room and said coldly, "It seems that you really have some ability. Don't hide in the room anymore. Come out quickly and let me see your true face." Damn it, what giant bull and giant tortoise. How dare you behave atrociously in Qitian sect with such a stupid name? I think your ghost cultivation sect will be destroyed by me sooner or later. Before he arrived, his voice arrived first. Xiao Chen's casual mockery angered the Ghost Cultivation sect's disciples to the point that their necks turned red. On the other hand, the Shishan giant ox remained unmoved as if it did not hear anything. Crick. Xiao Chen opened the door and slowly walked out. He first looked at the guard captain who was lying on the ground. Seeing that he was only slightly shaken and was not seriously injured, he ordered, "You guys take him to treat his injuries first. Leave this to me." The group of guards quickly nodded in gratitude, trotted over to support their captain, and quickly walked towards the doctor's room. The Shishan Giant Bull couldn't be bothered with the guards who were leaving. It stared intently at Xiao Chen and said, "You are Ajian? Who would have thought that he would have such a cultivation at such a young age? It was quite commendable. But it's a pity that no matter how valuable it is, it will fall into my hands today. As for Qitian men and that little girl surnamed Xing, I'll take them in as well." Ehe. The yak let out a shrill and unpleasant laugh that was like the cry of an owl. His expression was rather disdainful. Although his attack had been nullified, he could not feel just how powerful Xiao Chen was. He probably was not very powerful, which was why he was so unperturbed. "Why are you spouting so much nonsense? What a waste of saliva." Xiao Chen glared impatiently, "Since you want to stir up trouble, then I don't need to be polite with you." After saying that, Xiao Chen did not wait for the yak to reply. He immediately condensed 2 thunderballs in his palms and threw them directly at the yak. "It's just a small trick, there's nothing to be afraid of." Although that was what it said, the yak did not dare to be negligent and put on a defensive posture. Looking at the 2 crackling blue balls flying towards him, Shishan Dunyu originally wanted to take the opportunity to dodge, but he was afraid that these things would accidentally hurt the many subordinates behind him. With a thought, he once again released the black fog and wrapped it around his palms, forcibly catching these 2 strange things. Boom. Just at the moment when the yak's hands came into contact with the thunderballs, there was only a loud noise. The yak groaned and suddenly felt a sharp pain in his hands. Immediately afterward, the yak felt as if he had been electrocuted. His whole body twitched involuntarily, and the black fog that originally wrapped around his hands gradually dissipated. Tiske, it seems that your strength is not too weak. It was rare for Xiaochen to see someone who could still stand after receiving 2 of his thunder lightning balls. He praised her with great interest. Then his tone changed. However, I only used a mere 80% of my strength just now. It was mainly to test your ability to take hits. Next, I'm going to use my real strength. Before he finished speaking, the corners of Xiaochen's mouth suddenly curled up into a strange arc. In an instant, he revealed the strength of the first level of the profound ascending stage. He took out the repaired flying sword and infused the yuan qi in his body into it. You are. Shishan Giant Yak lowered his head to look at his scorched palm, then raised his head to look at the flying sword floating in front of Xiaochen. There was a vague sense of familiarity in his heart, as if he had seen this scene before in the distant past. Moreover, that past memory told him that this guy in front of him was extremely dangerous. Everyone attack. This kid is alone. No matter how powerful he is, he can't deal with so many evil cultivators at the same time. Without waiting for the yak to speak, West Mountain Mad Devil, who was standing next to him, suddenly waved his hand, and rushed towards Xiaochen with a group of evil cultivators. Shishan Mad Demon was standing very close, so he could already tell that Ajian's attack should have caused Shishan Giant Bull to suffer some minor injuries, but it was probably not a big deal. Therefore he wanted his subordinates to rush over and hold it off for a while. After his sect leader recovered, they would join forces to deal with Xiaochen. Wait. You are not his opponent, don't go and die. West Mountain Mad Devil's expression suddenly changed and he shouted. Just at the moment when West Mountain Mad Devil rushed out, West Mountain Mad Devil's mind flashed, and he suddenly remembered why he felt that Xiaochen's martial arts skills were familiar. Because he had seen similar skills in the immortal cultivation world. Those people in the immortal cultivation world could not only fly on their swords, but also control the arts of wind, fire, thunder and lightning at will. Wasn't it exactly the same as Ajian in front of him? This Ajian must also be from the immortal cultivation world. West Mountain Mad Devil and his group of people attacked him, they must be cannon fodder. Unfortunately, Shishan Yo's reminder was still a step too late. Xiaochen casually waved his finger and said indifferently, "Little demon N, since these silly evil cultivators have come to you on their own accord, you don't have to be courteous with them. Go ahead and absorb all the evil energy in their bodies. Take it as a gift from me to you." Whoosh. The flying sword seemed to have its own intelligence, and it immediately understood what Xiaochen meant. In an instant, it shot out like lightning, making a sharp piercing sound, and rushed towards the evil cultivators who were attacking from all directions. Chapter 1290. Although the strength of the heretical cultivators was not as high as that of Shishan Giant Ox, they were obviously not stupid people. They all knew that Xiaochen was very strong, so they did not dare to face the flying sword head-on. Instead, they quickly dispersed and formed a semicircle, trying to avoid the flying sword's attack. However, what surprised those heretical cultivators was that no matter how they dodged, the flying sword seemed to have eyes on the sword. It could predict their position in advance every time, and then change its direction to sweep towards them. The angle of the flying sword's attack was too tricky. The group of heretical cultivators were forced to be in a hurry, and the distance between them and Xiaochen was getting farther and farther. Ouch! One of the heretical cultivators hurriedly moved to avoid the flying sword. For a moment he did not pay attention to the surrounding environment. He accidentally tripped on a stone, suddenly lost his balance and fell forward. At this time, the flying sword was flying in the opposite direction of him, but as if it had eyes on its back, it suddenly braked in the middle, changed its direction without hesitation, made a 180-degree turn, and pierced into the back of the fallen heretical cultivator. The evil practitioner didn't even have time to scream before his chest was directly pierced by the flying sword. His face was pale and his mouth was open. He fell to the ground powerlessly and didn't move at all. He was as dead as he could be. Everyone be careful. This sword is strange, don't let it touch you. Shishan Giant Ox had already noticed that something was wrong at this time, and quickly reminded the disciples who were hiding. Shishan Giant Ox found that the flying sword seemed to be getting faster and faster after killing a heretical cultivator, and it was moving more flexibly. "Oh, I didn't expect you to have such good eyesight. You can even find such a subtle change. Xiao Chen looked at Shishan Giant Ox with a little surprise, and then his eyes returned to the heretical cultivators who were running away in the courtyard. He muttered to himself, but unfortunately it's too late. As soon as he said that, a ball of lightning instantly condensed in Xiao Chen's hand. After carefully observing the movements of those evil practitioners, he waved his right hand lightly. The ball of lightning that was flashing with electricity immediately flew out and attacked the evil practitioner who was trying his best to avoid being killed by a flying sword. The evil cultivator was busy dodging the flying swords, and happened to have his back to Xiao Chen, so he did not notice anything strange. It was only when the electric ball hit him that he realized something was wrong. Other than a scream, there was no way for him to fight back. The flying sword and Xiao Chen worked well together. The moment the evil cultivator lost his ability to move, he rushed forward and killed him with a single slash. Just as the evil cultivator's head fell to the ground, a faint black mist appeared on the body of the flying sword. Then the black mist gradually changed into the shape of a person. It was as if someone was holding the flying sword in his hand and waving it at the evil cultivators around him. I, little demon, and have finally come back to life. The humanoid black mist let out a sinister cackle. As it cackled, it shuttled through the battlefield, killing the evil cultivators one by one. Every time the flying sword stabbed an evil cultivator, the density of the humanoid black fog increased at a speed visible to the naked eye. It was obvious that Xiaoma was using the flying sword to absorb the evil energy in the evil cultivator's body. The more he absorbed, the more agile he became. He was much faster than a normal evil cultivator. Little demon, and stop talking nonsense. Hurry up and kill all those evil cultivators. Xiao Chen shouted in a deep voice. Then he condensed a fireball in his left hand and a thunderball in his right hand. He kept throwing them at the evil cultivators who were dodging. Yes, master. With the help of Xiao Chen, and Xiaoma moved like a fish in water. He suddenly sped up and killed all the evil cultivators around him in just a breath's time. The remaining evil cultivators suddenly felt miserable. On one hand, they were busy dodging Xiao Chen's magic attack. On the other hand, they had to be careful of the flying sword slash. It didn't take long for them to be in a mess. Several people were killed by Xiaoma. Damn it, don't panic. Let's join forces to attack the humanoid black fog. He's the weakness of that broken sword. Mad Demon Shishan couldn't stand it any longer. He immediately shouted and revealed the strength of a perfected venerable. His entire body was suffused with a black aura that emitted the smell of rotten corpses. Then he opened his palms and flew towards Xiaoma. Good timing. Xiaoma laughed wildly and kept the flying sword behind him. Not only did he have no intention of dodging, but he also puffed out his chest and faced Mad Demon Shishan's palms. Xiao Chen couldn't understand Xiaoma's actions. However, he knew that Xiaoma would definitely not harm himself, so he just waited and watched. As for Mad Demon Shishan, he was overjoyed. One had to know that his rotten aura was extremely pure. No matter who touched it, it would be completely dissipated. In a flash, Mad Demon Shishan's palms had already reached Xiaoma's chest. What? How is this possible? Mad Demon Shishan's original joy remained on his face, but it turned into horror in an instant. Although Mad Demon Shishan felt that his palms had already reached Xiaoma's chest, it did not cause any harm to this guy. On the contrary, the evil aura in his body was constantly dissipating. It was constantly flowing into Xiaoma's body through his palms. Well, not bad, not bad. Your evil aura is quite pure. It's much stronger than those small fries. I'm having a good time eating it. And Xiaoma said with an intoxicated look, as if he was tasting a delicacy. As more and more evil aura was absorbed by Mad Demon Shishan, and Xiaoma's figure gradually became more substantial, becoming more and more like a real human. Mad Demon, why aren't you letting go? If this goes on, you'll be sucked dry. Shishan Giant Bull had just eliminated the aftereffects of the thunder lightning ball and shouted anxiously. Leader Bull, I can't seem to let go. Mad Demon Shishan also realized the seriousness of the problem at this time. He used all his strength to stop Xiaoma from absorbing his evil aura. However, no matter how hard he tried, his palms were still stuck to Xiaoma's chest. He couldn't retract them at all. Shishan Giant Bull strode closer, but there was nothing he could do when he saw this scene. He couldn't cut off Mad Demon Shishan's arm just to separate them, right? When he was at a loss of what to do, Giant Ox Shishan glanced casually and suddenly found that Xiaoma had hidden the flying sword behind him. He thought of something and immediately waved his palm to slap the flying sword out of thin air. He even threatened fiercely, "It turns out that the broken sword is your weakness. It seems that I have underestimated you. Go to hell." Chapter 1291. You finally found out. The flying sword was the vessel that Xiaoma used to parasitize. After being discovered by Shishan Giant Bull, Xiaoma naturally did not dare to neglect it. While laughing strangely, his body nimbly broke away from Mad Demon of Shishan, turning into a light smoke and shrinking into the flying sword. Only then did Mad Demon of Shishan Giant Bull get rid of Xiaoma's control. His feet suddenly went soft and he fell to the ground. He only felt that his body was empty, and there seemed to be not much cultivation left. He couldn't help but look pale and at a loss. Before Shishan Giant Yak's palm wind touched the flying sword, Xiaoma controlled it in the sword and barely dodged his attack. She also circled to the back of the two evil cultivators who thought they were safe and easily killed them one by one. "What kind of giant bull is it? What's the point of fighting a sword? Come and play with me. Don't look around there, watch my fist." Xiao Qin sneered, stomped his feet and used his movement technique. In the blink of an eye, he passed by those evil cultivators, waved his arm and punched straight at Shishan Giant Bull. Bang! When Shishan Giant Bull suddenly turned around, Xiao Qin's fist was already in front of him. He was shocked and wanted to retreat quickly. As a result, before he could take 2 steps back, he felt a solid punch on his left face. A strong force came and he was directly sent flying several feet away. Xiao Qin could not be bothered to wait. His figure flashed again, and while the Shishan Yak was still flying in the air and had not landed on the ground, he raised his leg and kicked at its lower abdomen, directly stepping on it. His fists rained down like a storm. "Master Ajian, stop fighting. I'm convinced. Immortal Ajian. I really can't stand it, my bones are about to be broken." Shishan Giant Bull did not dare to resist at all, but he covered his wound and wailed like a pig being slaughtered. If those who knew Shishan Dunyu saw this scene, their jaws would probably drop in shock. The dignified sect leader of the Ghost Cultivation sect was rolling on the ground, passively dodging Xiao Chen's punches and kicks. The arrogance that he had when he came to provoke Shishan Dunyu had disappeared. Xiao Chen stopped and dusted off the dust on his palm. Then he grabbed the collar of the Shishan Giant Bull and said coldly, "To tell you the truth, my name is Xiao Chen. As for the name Ajian, I just came up with it randomly." "So, Hero Xiao Chen, no. Exalted Immortal Xiao. I had eyes but failed to recognize Mount Tai and accidentally offended you. I'm really sorry. Please be magnanimous and let me go." Shishan Giant Yak's face was swollen, and its tone was extremely flattering and humble. Xiao Chen loosened his grip and threw the Shishan Giant Bull back to the ground. Then he stood up and said condescendingly, "Since you've already admitted defeat, I'll spare your life today. However, I still have something to ask you. You'd better answer honestly. Otherwise, you know the consequences." Xiao Chen originally did not intend to beat the Shishan Giant Bull to death. After all, it was the sect leader of the Ghost Cultivation sect and had mastered the secret method of sacrifice. He had to first understand how the sacrifice in the world of cultivators was carried out. "Xiao. Exalted Immortal Xiao, if you have any questions, just ask. I'll tell you everything I know. I definitely won't lie to you." The Shishan Giant Bull did not dare to be negligent. It crawled up and did not even dare to brush off the dust on its clothes. It bowed and said cautiously. It had to be convinced. It had only seen the methods that Xiao Qin used in the world of cultivators. This meant that even if Xiao Qin was not a mighty figure from the other side, he was still a super expert with the strength of a cultivator. Although it could not figure out his cultivation for the time being, according to its experience in the world of cultivators, this Xiao Qin was at least an expert in the foundation establishment stage. If it fought him head-on, wouldn't it be courting death? Not far away, the West Mountain Mad Demon, who had just struggled to get up, turned his head and saw this scene. He was instantly dumbfounded. What the hell is going on? Why is the sect leader standing in front of Xiao Qin humbly? Looking around blankly, the West Mountain Mad Demon found that in just a moment, the elites of the Ghost Cultivation sect had been killed. Moreover, they were killed by an inexplicable flying sword that did not look like a flying sword or a human. The West Mountain Mad Demon turned his head again and looked at the Shishan Giant Bull, who had a humble expression on his face. Originally, he thought that after the sect leader came over, the Ghost Cultivation sect would be able to take charge of everything. He never expected that in less than an hour, this would happen. This made the West Mountain Mad Demon panic and feel at a loss. At this time, the West Mountain Mad Demon's emotions were extremely complicated. Xiaochen did not stay idle on the other side. He asked directly, I heard that your Ghost Cultivation sect has captured a woman named Lu Shuangshuang, right? Did you also capture other people in the Wulin and Tianfang province? Where are they locked up now? You mean those few women with spiritual qi? They are here. In order to prepare for the sacrifice, they have all been brought to the open heaven gate. The West Mountain Mad Demon was slightly stunned. It did not expect that Xiaochen would ask this question at the beginning. After the West Mountain Mad Demon said this, Xiaochen waited for a while and found that it did not respond again. He could not help but raise his eyebrows and said, Then what are you waiting for? Oh. If Immortal Xiao is interested in them, then I will ask someone to bring them all here. The West Mountain Mad Demon was still waiting for Xiao Chen's next question. He was shocked when he heard this as if he had just woken up from a dream. The West Mountain Mad Demon thought that Xiao Chen had taken a fancy to Lu Shuangshuang and the other women. He quickly glared at the West Mountain Mad Demon not far away and shouted, Mad Demon, why are you standing there in a daze? Hurry up and bring those girls over to Immortal Xiao. Okay, I'll do it now. Only then did the West Mountain Mad Demon come to his senses. He did not care about dealing with the disciples of the Ghost Cultivation sect who had been killed by Xiaoma. He immediately turned around and ran in the direction where he came from. You know what to do. Xiaochen nodded with satisfaction and asked, While he is going to pick them up, I can ask you another question. How is the sacrifice in the cultivation world going to be carried out? What are the steps? The method of sacrifice is recorded in the ancient books of the Ghost Cultivation sect. Because there are many things written in it, I can't explain it clearly. The expression on the West Mountain Mad Demon's face was a little frightened, and he stammered. As the leader of the Ghost Cultivation sect, you can't even explain the ancient books of your sect clearly? Were you kidding? Do you want to loosen your muscles and bones? Xiaochen sneered and said sarcastically. No, Immortal Xiao, you don't know. The words in the ancient books are relatively obscure. I'm afraid that I will accidentally explain it wrong. The West Mountain Mad Demon shivered in fear and quickly explained, How about this? I also brought the ancient book this time. I will go and get it for you. You can have a look yourself? Chapter 1292. Xiaochen saw that the bull's expression did not seem to be fake. He pondered for a moment, then waved his hand and said, You don't have to take it now. When we have a meeting with the Immortal Cultivation sects tomorrow, you can take out the ancient book and study it. See if you can verify it with the Immortal Cultivation sects and fill in the gaps. Thinking of the hypocritical and pretentious old guys of the Immortal Cultivation sects, the bull secretly curled its lips to express its disdain. Although the strength of that group of people was not bad, none of them could reach his level. How could they have the nerve to come here and get a piece of the pie? Although the bull's movement was very slight, Xiaochen still noticed it. He was too lazy to speak up for the Immortal Cultivation sects, so he continued to ask, Your strength is higher than Situ Haotian's. You must have been to the Immortal Cultivation sects, right? The bull was still immersed in its contempt for the Immortal Cultivation sects. Hearing this, it replied casually, I have been there. Halfway through its sentence, the Shishan colossal bull realized that it had let the cat out of the bag. It immediately stopped talking, its face turning pale. However, on second thought, Xiaochen was originally from the world of cultivators. It was not a big deal for him to know. Since you have been there, why don't you tell me how much you know about the situation in the Immortal Cultivation sects? Xiaochen asked with a smile. The bull was a little stunned. Xiaochen asked this question. Didn't he come from the Immortal Cultivation sects? Could it be that he was the illegitimate child of a big family? Ahem. No matter how sharp Xiaochen was, he did not know that the bull's imagination had gone too far. Seeing that the bull hesitated and did not speak, Xiaochen cleared his throat impatiently. The bull shivered and quickly withdrew its thoughts. It replied in fear and trepidation. Actually, I don't know much about the Immortal Cultivation sects. I only know that there are two big families in the town I just entered. The cultivation level of the people inside is relatively high. I don't know much about other things. Two big families? Xiaochen asked with interest. Then how did you get in? Didn't you use the sacrificial method to get in? Reporting to Exalted Immortal Xiao, I indeed did not use that method to enter. Shishan Giant Ox honestly explained, I once obtained a command medallion that was passed down from the previous sect master of our ghost cultivation sect. I also found the ancient book that opened the door to the cultivation world. Then I followed the instructions in the ancient book and used the command medallion to pass through the teleportation formation to enter the cultivation world. Xiao Qin raised his eyebrows slightly and didn't say anything. Presumably this token should be a one-time use. Otherwise, Shishan Giant Bull wouldn't have racked its brains to think of a sacrificial ritual to re-enter the world of cultivation. Sure enough, the Shishan Colossal Ox shook its head and continued, unfortunately this token is a one-time use. It can no longer be used after it comes out. Since you've already gone in, why did you come out? Xiao Qin asked curiously, won't I be able to improve my strength faster and become more awesome if I stay in there? The Shishan Giant Ox had a bitter expression as it explained helplessly, I also want to stay inside and not come out. But the immortal cultivators inside are too strong, just as strong as you, Exalted Immortal Xiao. I'm no match for them at all. So, after entering the world of cultivation, I was always trembling with fear. Later I finally gained a little, so I immediately set off to return. Shishan Giant Ox recalled that when it first entered the world of cultivation, it was only an expert with the strength of a venerable. There were many experts in the world of cultivation. Magical martial arts and profound mental cultivation methods could be seen everywhere. Those people didn't care about a weak chicken like it at all. Not many people were willing to pay attention to it. In the end, Shishan Giant Ox endured the pain and spent some spiritual jades as the price to exchange for some advanced cultivation resources. It successfully cultivated to a higher realm, and at the same time inquired about some information. One had to know that the world of cultivation was rich in spiritual energy and resources. Although there were many experts, it was very suitable for cultivators to make breakthroughs. After Shishan Giant Ox returned to the inner martial arts world, its strength was outstanding and it swept away all the major sections. Its mind became active, and it thought about bringing the people of the sect to the world of cultivation as well to train them well. However, the token had lost its effectiveness and could not be used. Shishan Giant Ox then followed another method in the ancient book and sent his subordinates to find women with spiritual energy to prepare for sacrifices. Some of the middle and high-level disciples in the ghost cultivation sect basically knew about this situation, but they coincidentally concealed it from the people outside the sect. The reason was also very simple. Because of their own cultivation methods, the evil cultivators had always been in a situation where they were looked down upon and hated by others. Therefore, they gathered together and wanted to use the world of cultivation, which was a treasure land, to greatly improve their strength, and then return with glory to find a way to unify the inner martial arts world. What a waste. What a waste of that token. The information it brought back is of no use at all. Xiao Qin glared at Shishan Giant Ox angrily. He raised his fist and was about to teach him a lesson again, but he heard a little movement in the distance. Xiao Qin glanced at it from the corner of his eyes. It turned out that Mad Demon of Shishan was back, followed by a few girls, and the one in the lead was Lu Shuangshuang, whom he had not seen for a long time. Shishan Giant Ox was originally ready to be beaten again. After waiting for a while, there was no movement. He looked up and found that Xiao Qin was slowly putting down his fist. He could not help but breathe a sigh of relief. He turned his head and looked in the direction of Xiao Qin's gaze. Only then did he understand the reason. Shishan Giant Ox secretly thought that he was lucky. Fortunately, Mad Demon of Shishan came in time. Otherwise, he would have inevitably experienced the tragic experience just now again. Looking at Xiao Qin's youthful and energetic face, the Shishan Giant Bull was very puzzled. This guy is so powerful, but he seems to know nothing about the cultivation world. Could it be that he really didn't come from there? Is he really going to play a drama of illegitimate son looking for his father or mother? Xiao Qin, is it really you? Am I seeing things? Shishan Giant Ox was thinking, and suddenly there was an excited exclamation from a distance. However, the exclamation was not made by Lu Shuangshuang. Lu Shuangshuang's mouth opened slightly, but before she could say anything, a figure flashed by. A woman suddenly passed her and rushed towards Xiao Qin. You Xiaoya? When Xiao Qin saw the figure, he was stunned for a moment. Before he had time to react, he was hugged by Yi Xiaoya. Boo-hoo! You scared me to death. How can you make such a joke with me? Why did you let those evil cultivators come to the Devil Star sect to catch me? If you want to see me, can't you just call me? You stinking bad guy. Yi Xiaoya's whole body was in Xiao Chen's arms, and she did not forget to wave her small fists and hit him hard a few times. Obviously, she had some misunderstandings about him. Chapter 1293. Yi Xiaoya was originally cultivating in the Devil Star sect, but one day she was inexplicably captured by a heretic cultivator without any warning. She was even locked up in a dark and terrifying place for a long time. No one spoke to her, and her heart was filled with panic and fear. After being transported to the open heavenly gate, before Yi Xiaoya could familiarize herself with the environment, West Mountain Mad Demon brought them out together. She thought they were going to the execution ground to wait for the final verdict. Just as she was feeling uneasy and letting her imagination run wild, Yi Xiaoya suddenly saw Xiao Chen, like a drowning person grabbing onto the last life-saving straw. She subconsciously thought that it was Xiao Chen who had ordered those heretic cultivators to do this. With a creak, the door of the courtyard behind Xiao Chen suddenly opened. Xing, Song Huawu, Hongzhu, and the other girls came out in a line and looked in the direction of Xiao Chen. When West Mountain Mad Demon came to provoke them, Xiao Chen had warned the girls before he went out, so for safety reasons, they had been staying in the room and not coming out. Later, Qing Minjing used her divine sense to observe that Xiao Chen had already finished the battle and was interrogating West Mountain Mad Demon, so she told the girls. They were chattering about Xiao Chen's strength when they suddenly heard Yi Xiaoya's voice. Out of curiosity, the girls swarmed out, wanting to see what was going on. However, other than Xiao Chen, the few spirit chi girls that West Mountain Mad Demon brought with him were too nervous and did not immediately notice the girls' existence. Lu Shuangshuang was already unhappy that her lines were stolen. Seeing that Xiao Chen was still tightly hugged by the little beauty, her expression became a little ugly, and she slowly walked forward with a pout. Ah, so you were the one who asked those people to do it? But why did you do it? If you wanted to see me, why didn't you come to Tianfang province? I thought I was kidnapped by some terrorists. Another woman followed behind Lu Shuangshuang and pouted her lips as she complained. Xiao Chen felt that this voice was both strange and familiar. He turned around and was immediately stunned. That person was actually Lan Xinxin. At this moment, Xiao Chen felt like his head was about to explode. Previously, he thought that other than Wang Fantian, there was no one else he was familiar with in Tianfang province. In the end, he neglected Lan Xinxin, the strange girl. Could she also be a spirit chi woman? Why were all the women with spiritual energy people he knew? Song Huawu could tell that Xiao Chen had been misunderstood by them. She knew Lan Xinxin and knew that this girl was a little insensitive. She wanted to help Xiao Chen explain the current situation. You misunderstood. It's not what you think. What's going on? Xiao Chen, explain it clearly. Before Song Huawu could finish, Lu Shuangshuang jumped up and interrupted her. She originally thought that she had nothing to do with these two beauties. When they were locked up, she didn't say much. She didn't expect that all three of them knew Xiao Chen. Lu Shuangshuang, who was originally a little jealous, was now only left with confusion. She couldn't figure out the situation at all. At first, Lu Shuangshuang also thought that she had been captured by a very evil person and might be sent to be experimented on or something. She even had nightmares at night. But when she saw Xiao Chen appear in front of her, coupled with Yi Xiaoya and Lan Xinxin's reactions, she quickly began to suspect that all of this was secretly done by Xiao Chen. Moreover, Lu Shuangshuang suddenly remembered that when she was captured, she wasn't violated at all. If it were an ordinary robber, how could he not make a move on these three beauties? If it weren't for Xiao Chen, this sneaky guy, how could others think of such a stupid idea? Shuangshuang, are you okay? When you were captured by the evil cultivator, I was worried to death. Sob, sob, sob. Lin, who was standing at the back, suddenly cried out in alarm. She quickly ran over and held Lu Shuangshuang's hand. The two of them were reunited after a long time. Lin couldn't help but feel a little emotional. Tears flowed uncontrollably from her eyes. Greer, I'm fine. Don't cry. Why are you here? Say, what is this place? Lu Shuangshuang asked in surprise. She wasn't as fragile as Lin. Although she was shocked and surprised to see Lin and Xiao Chen at the same time, she still wanted to figure out the reason first. Otherwise, this scene would be too much like a dream. Three cute little sisters, don't be anxious. Let big sister tell you the details. CFA smiled sweetly. She stepped forward and pulled Lan Xinxin and the other girls to the side. Hongzhu gave Xiaochen a sidelong glance and also followed. The two girls had the clearest thoughts among the group. Their words were also the clearest. They quickly explained the reason why the evil cultivator had kidnapped them and how Xiaochen had rescued them. Xiaochen shrugged helplessly. If Xie and Hongzhu weren't present, he would have to spend a lot of effort to explain the whole situation. After all, the process was too long. Turning his head, Xiaochen saw that giant ox of the West Mountain was still foolishly standing to the side. However, he was slightly better than Elder Sunday. He knew to lower his eyes and not look at the girls. "You giant ox, you can go back now." Xiaochen waved his hand and lightly ordered, "Remember to go to the conference room at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. At that time, I will also call the people of the Immortal Cultivation sect. We will have a meeting to discuss how to cooperate and use the safest and smoothest way to enter the Immortal Cultivation world. Remember to be punctual." Since Lu Shuangshuang and the other girls were safe and sound, Xiaochen planned to let Giant Ox of the West Mountain go for the time being. In any case, he had already surrendered. He still needed to open the Ghost Cultivation sect's sacrificial ceremony. There was no need to kill him immediately. "Okay, no problem. I will definitely not be late. Don't worry, Immortal Xiao." Giant Ox of the West Mountain nodded quickly. He didn't dare to stay any longer. He quickly called Mad Devil of the West Mountain to quickly deal with the corpses of the Ghost Cultivation sect disciples on the ground. Then the two of them bowed to Xiaochen and left in a hurry. Just after Giant Ox of the West Mountain and the others left, Xie and Hongzhu finally explained the ins and outs of the matter. After Lu Shuangshuang and the other girls understood the whole story, they suddenly realized that they had misunderstood Xiaochen. They didn't expect that those evil cultivators really had an ulterior motive for taking them away. Lu Shuangshuang, Yi Xiaoye and Lan Xinxin were a little embarrassed for misunderstanding Xiaochen. Lan Xinxin was the first to apologize. Yi Xiaoye also readily admitted her mistake. Although Lu Shuangshuang was a little awkward, seeing that the two girls had apologized, she didn't want to appear to be a maverick, so she hesitated and apologized. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.